Today we are discussing the book NPE Birthing and NPE, How My Family Became My Darvo, A Path to Healing by Sandra Wiley. The reason we are discussing this book today is because April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we have the author on with us today. Again, her name is Sandra Wiley. I would like to first and foremost thank my friend Kiwanda. We have a mutual friend. Her name is Kiwanda Davis for recommending this book to our group. As soon as I read about it, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I decided to put this on our book list for this month, particularly because, like I said, it is Child Abuse Month, and your story needed to be told. Okay, and also I was looking for a book that covered this topic for so many reasons. So today we're going to cover the topic of trying to make people aware of Child Abuse Month and possibly help someone that may be going through this same situation. Okay, so that is the purpose of this discussion today. So I want Sandra Wiley to let us know who she is and what she do, and just a little bit about yourself. Tell the people. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Sandra Wiley. I am currently a single mom of used to be four children, but now seven children. I have four adult children, and at the age of 48, I decided I wanted more kids, so I ended up having three more kids. It should have been two, but God blessed me with an extra one. I have a set of twin girls. I am librarian, what they call a librarian by education. I do have a master's degree in library and information science, but I am currently a caseworker and I work for the Human Service Department. And I am telling my story today because, as you stated, it is a story that needs to be told. It is my way of making others aware that they have a voice when it comes to child abuse, even if the abuse occurred as a child and you are now an adult. It will still affect you years on, especially if you don't find a way to heal from it. So I wrote my book entitled NPE, Birthing an NPE, How My Family Became My Davo, and this is my path to healing. The reason why I wrote this book is to help me heal from my past childhood traumas and abuse. And hopefully, this will help others who have gone through the same thing that I've gone through, find their voice and heal from their past as well.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. So, before we jump right into the questions, because really today is just a conversation, and I want to kind of let people know where we're kind of starting so that they'll know like a little backstory of what's going on. So, you were born in Chicago,
Yes,
and you all moved constantly, staying with different family members due to facing poverty. When you were 6 years old, your mom asked your father if you could move in with him and his girlfriend at the time until she gets on her feet. Your
correct.
dad, your dad girlfriend attitude changed after you moved in. She started being distant towards you and not including you when she would take the other kids out of the house. And that alone time with your father is when the sexual abuse began. Okay. Um, your mom was pregnant. Later on, she was pregnant and lost the baby, which sent her to a downward spiral. So I just want to let people know a little bit about your mom. She went to a downward spiral after the loss of her child, and she ended up losing her apartment, and she later started using drugs, right? And then your mom decided she wanted to move to Detroit with her half brother, Uncle Charlie. She didn't stay there long, but she wanted to move back. to Chicago. And when she left Detroit, she took your little brother Alex and her and left you behind to stay with your Uncle Charlie. And shortly afterwards, he started sexually abusing you as well. Okay. So, my first question that I want to ask is, did you tell your mom about the first encounter or the second encounter?
I never told my mom about no encounters. My mom passed away when I was very young, and up until that age, I really didn't even know that what the abuse that was happening to me. I didn't even know that it was abuse, number one, and I didn't know that about good touch or bad touch. Nobody never told me about it. So I didn't know I was supposed to tell anybody, up until, that age of when my mom passed away.
Okay. All right. Um, Yolanda, Shakina, anybody have any questions? You're welcome. Go ahead.
I don't really have any questions, but I'm glad that you survived the situation. But well, I do have one. Um, Before your mom passed away or whatever, and everything was going on, and she had started using drugs, and you was like, oh, she had her hands under her thighs or things like that. Did you? How can I say? Did you notice any difference? Did you think that the person who murdered your mom was on drugs too, or did he introduce her to drugs, or it just all happened together, or did you know, or were you aware of it?
Until the day that I found my mom rocking back and forth with her hands up underneath her thighs, I didn't even know she did drugs. So I
Mm-hmm.
really don't know if that was the first encounter or if she had done it prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Looking back at some of the decision making she did when it came to especially leaving me, with random men, I kind of believe maybe this was something that was going on prior to me finding out at that time. And the guy that took her life, the way he told me about what my mom had been doing what was doing, he made me think at that time it wasn't nothing that he was in agreement with. Like, I can't really tell that he was doing it too, because at that time he made it, I guess that was his excuse for doing some of the abuse towards her that he was doing towards her because she was doing that. But I really can't say for sure if he had ever did it because I never saw any signs. I do know the only signs that I knew of him is that he definitely was an alcoholic.
Okay. And then one more question. So do you think that your mother didn't notice the difference between you because she was codependent on drugs or something like that? Like when you came home and she noticed you something, you ran away. Do you think that was the reason she kind of didn't notice the change in your attitude or your behavior?
It's possible. Um, I don't know my mom's past. I really don't know what she went through as a child. A lot of things that happen to kids is usually a family curse, something that previously happened down the line. And I don't know, maybe she saw me or saw herself in me and thought it was just normal because it may have been normal for her at the time. So not one time did she ever have a conversation with me and ask me, have anybody ever touched me or have anybody ever physically abused me? The only time my mama showed concerns of abuse is one time when I came home from her friend, one of her best friends that we often stay with. Her best friend had whooped me one time with, I don't know if it was a extension cord or a rope. I don't know what it was, but I had some really bad whelps on my
Mm,
legs. And
mm,
that was like the first time my mom ever stood up to somebody about abusing me. Like, she was really upset when she saw those marks on my legs, and her friend had got into a big altercation over that. But outside of that one incident, she have never asked me, have anybody ever, whipped me? Have anybody ever touched me inappropriately? She just, I don't know, she just never asked me anything.
Shakina, do you have anything to ask?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. Sandra, I want you to tell the people how your mom passed away.
So, my mom was always, she had very poor choice in men. I'm not sure what her type of man was, but I do know that the men that she dated that I can remember, they were all abusive. Very, abusive towards her. It could be verbally, it could be physically. None was worse than the last one, the one that took her life. That's actually the only one that we she pretty much stayed with the longest. She stayed with him. She met him at a bar that she used to work at. She was a bartender there. From what I can tell, he really didn't have nothing. He didn't have a job. Probably didn't even have a place to stay because my mom moved him in pretty quick. And at the beginning, he seemed to be, okay, until we saw the bad side to him. And so the physical abuse went on so much that I didn't even want to stay with my mom anymore because I didn't want to. I just it always frightened me to see my mom be beaten on, be battered and abused, and it always frightened me because I never knew when he may turn his beatings towards me and my little brother. So I will always be afraid to be over there, and I always found ways to get out of there, even if I went to stay with my father who was still sexually abusing me, or went to stay with my mom's friend. And at one point, when I addressed my concern to her, she finally went and checked herself into a battered women's shelter, but she ended up running off with her abuser. And as a result, my brother and I ended up going into foster care. And when we were in foster care, she had to go through a lot of odds and ends to get me and my brother back. And as she was working on getting us back, they were working on helping her get her own place because I guess that was part of the program, try to get the women away from the abusers by, putting them in a place where the abuser can't find them and making them feel safe. And she got us a place of our own, which was very, very rare for us because we never really had a place of our own. It was in a public housing projects, which we didn't care. Public housing projects wasn't as bad back in those days anyway, even though they did have a lot of bad reputation. But we were just happy that we were all together under one roof, and he wasn't a part of it. But we wasn't there a good couple of weeks before she ended up moving him back in. We don't know how that happened. Again, it was just something about this particular guy that she just did not want to leave for nothing in the world. And we moved in there like that 1st of July. And only 3 months later, that October, he had my mom had let me stay the night at her friend, one of her ex-husband's mother's house, and she was supposed to come back and get me, but she didn't. She ended up sending him to get me. And like I said, he had an alcohol problem. And so my mom's ex-mother-in-law, she had an alcohol problem too. They liked to drink. So when he got out there, he started mingling, and to a point where they started drinking, and he became like filthy drunk. And we ended up coming back home on public transportation, thank God, because we wouldn't have never made it if he was driving. And when we got back to the apartment, my mom had two guys at the apartment giving her a manual homemade tattoo on her buttocks, which is not a really good place to be putting a tattoo. And it definitely was not a good scene for a alcoholic boyfriend who was very drunk at the time. And when he saw them doing that, he ended up putting them out. And after he put them out, he started jumping on her. He started beating on her, which I knew that was going to end up happening. And I told the guys, I said, he's going to beat up on my mama, once y'all leave. And he's like, oh no, she okay. They not gonna, he not gonna do anything. But if he does do something, you come back and get us. And so once the beating got intense, I did exactly what they asked me to do. I came back and I got them. They went over there. They asked me to stay back at the apartment while they go handle it. And from what I hear, because I didn't go back to the apartment, they kind of roughed him up pretty badly to a point where he had to be sent off to the hospital. And after he got sent off to the hospital, I guess my mama wasn't talking to him, maybe ignoring his advances or whatever. I don't know, because we didn't even have a phone back then. So I don't even know what happened. I know I didn't see him for a whole week. And one day I was awakened out of my sleep with my mom calling my name. And I was thinking it was something in my dream, but it was her actually calling me. And when I looked out the room of my bedroom, I saw the front door being kicked in, and it was him. And my mom was so frightened, she just grabbed me and my brother and ran us to her bedroom and closed the door and locked it. But he was able to get that front door kicked in, which was very, very hard to do for those type of doors in public housing projects. He got that door kicked in. So once he got to the bedroom, it only took one kick to kick that bedroom door open. And once he kicked that bedroom door open, he was filled with so much rage, and he made it clear that this was revenge. That he told my mama, he said, everything those guys did to me, I'm going to do to you. And he began abusing her, and he started hitting her with everything that was in his sight, anything that was in his sight. And my brother and I would just kind of climb on top of her, because he never abused us in no way, shape, or form. So we figured if we sealed her, that would make him stop. But all he did was kept pulling us down by our legs so that he can get to her. And he pulled he snatched the TV out of the wall, and he threw it on top of her legs, and she ended up falling on the floor. At that moment, he moved in close to her and he started punching her real bad. That gave me access to the door, because when he came in there, he knew that I would run for help, because I'm always the one that's running for help. And he kind of shielded that door to keep me from running for help. But once I got access to that door, I ran straight out and I ran to a neighbor's and I called the police, and I stayed there until we learned that there was an ambulance downstairs and they was pulling in a woman on a stretcher. So my neighbor asked me if I wanted to go see if that was my mom, and I told her yes. And when we went down there, true enough, it was my mom. And when I saw her laying in there, she basically didn't look like herself. She was really battered and bruised. She had blood coming from the side of her mouth. They was working on her, but the way they was working on her and the way that she looked at it didn't look like it was bad enough to take her life. I mean, I actually thought she was going to be okay. And at the same token, the police pulled up behind the ambulance and they wanted me to tell them what happened. And as I'm telling them the story, I'm still looking inside the back window of the ambulance, trying to see if my mom was going to be okay. So it was kind of hard to focus on talking to them and thinking about my mom at the same time. And then once the ambulance pulled off, the police assured me she was going to be okay. After they got my statement, they asked the neighbor that stayed directly next door, not the neighbor that took me down to the ambulance, if she can keep an eye on me and my brother until they can contact family. And she agreed, even though we didn't know her, but she agreed to she was also a witness to the beating, because after I ran out of the apartment, she came out to the hallway, or maybe she opened her door, I don't know, because the fight ended up moving to the hallway, from the apartment to the hallway. So there were other witnesses that saw the fight after it moved to the hallway, and she was one of them. And so I guess that's probably why the officers asked her if she would, be so kindly to keep an eye on me and my brother. And she did that. And so she had my brother and I to sleep in this bedroom towards the front of her apartment, and her bedroom was in the back of the apartment. So somebody came and knocked at her door, but she didn't hear the door knock because she's all the way in the back and we're in the front. I heard the door knock, and I went and I told her, I said, somebody's at your door knocking at the door. And so she got up and she started walking to the door, and I was walking behind her. And when she opened up the door, you can basically see our apartment from her door. And I can see so many, back then, detectives wore long trench coats. So you could tell that they was detectives because they had long trench coats on. And never in a time that I've called the police, that detectives come out. I've always saw just the plain police officers came out to investigate. And of course, my mom always told, oh, no, nobody never called the police, and they will leave. This was the first time that I saw detectives, and it was like a lot of them. They was going in and out the apartment, and I'm looking, and the guy that came and knocked at her door, he was also a detective. But when he saw me, he asked her to step out the apartment. And I still was looking towards even though I wasn't paying no attention to him, I was looking towards my apartment because I'm trying to figure out why is these people going in and out the apartment. And you can also see flashing, like flash photography flash. So I can see flashing. I didn't see cameras, but I can see flashing. And so she stepped out the apartment for a few minutes, and I went back and I laid down, and she came back in the apartment like nothing was wrong. And then I guess she started walking towards the back, to her bedroom, and before she could make it back there, she just broke down screaming. And I came up to her and I kneeled down to her and I asked her, was she okay? And she told me she was fine. She said, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then somebody else came back and knocked at the door, and she had asked me, can I go to the door for her? And when I went to go to the door, it was some more neighbors from on the that lived on the floor. They saw all the activities. They figured, they're gonna get the tea. They're gonna get the tea from her because they saw that the officers was knocking at her door as well. And so they came to see what was going on. And as she was walking towards her kitchen to talk to them, I can see her looking at me in the corner of my eye. So I can tell she didn't want to talk in front of me. So I started walking away back to the bedroom I was sleeping in. But before I could even make it to the bedroom, I heard her tell the neighbors, those kids' parents, those kids' mother just died. And at first I wasn't sure if that's what she said. I wasn't 100% sure, but that's what I thought she said at the time. That's what I thought she said. And so I immediately went and woke my brother up, and I told my brother, because we never called my mom mother or mom or nothing. We always called her by her first name, which was Sheila. And I went and I woke my brother up, and I said, I think Sheila is dead. And he just looked at me, and we just held each other. We didn't even cry because for one, we didn't even know if she was dead or not. That was what I thought I heard. And for two, it was almost like, I don't know, grief is different for a kid. Like kids don't know how to grieve. And I know that now. Um, it was really hard to fathom that she may be possibly gone. So because I still held on to that little hope that maybe I heard that, and it's a possibility I did not hear that, I just wasn't accepting it at that time. And I just did whatever came next.
Mm. Wow. So basically you was at the house when your mom was murdered, basically. You were there. And
Yes.
that definitely has to be hard to live with that thought, in your mind for the rest of your life, and your brother.
Yes.
Um, I do want to tell the people though that when your mom was getting the tattoo, she was getting your name tatted on her, like you said.
Oh yes. Yes,
Although she,
I didn't know what they were doing at the time that I walked in on what they were doing. I didn't find out until the next day. I had asked my mom, what was happening, and she had turned around and she showed it to me. She's like, they was putting a tattoo on me, and she said I was trying to get your name on there, and she only got to SAND. Now I don't know if somewhere down the line she ever got the RA put on there, but I know that was far as they got before he came in and put a stop to that.
yeah, I just want to let the people know that that was a special tattoo. It wasn't just no any kind of tattoo.
Yes, that definitely made me feel special because I'm not sure if she was getting my brother name as well, but I do know she was saying I was getting your name tatted on me.
Mhm. Um, I wanted to know, do you think that when you tell people about your abuse, that it give them or it gave them at the time when you were a kid, when you did possibly tell them you were abused, do you think it gave them the perception of you that you were easy prey? For example, your foster dad. Remember, after you told them, then he tried something with you. Remember? So I just wanted to know, did you feel like that? Like if you, confess and tell people and then boom, they end up abusing you?
Um, yes, I do. I do believe that. Because like you said, my foster family, they even though they found out later, they didn't know that I had been abused by my father. And yeah, then he started abusing me. I am still actually in contact with one of my foster sisters that stayed in a foster home, and she read my book. And the first thing she said when she called me, because we called him Daddy Fisher, and the first thing she said when she called me, after she read the book, she said, "I am so sorry that what Daddy Fisher did to you." She said, I felt the need to call you." She said, "Because you're not the only one. He did that too." She said, "We went through three different foster sisters, and they all left for that exact reason that he was touching them. So I didn't even know he was an abuser." So this was a foster family where the wife, that was her passion. Her passion was to foster children, but she did not know that her husband was also touching the foster kids. And she said that he tried it with her one time, but she let him have it so bad he never did it no more. Because she said she had already knew about him by the time he had tried it with her. But other girls that he tried it with, he was successful, and those girls ended up leaving. Um, I didn't leave right away because I actually liked it, that foster home. People don't understand how difficult it is when you find a place that you actually like staying at, and especially when you award to the state and you don't know where your next placement is going to be. You really don't want to say anything that's going to mess that up. I knew that if I would, by that time when he molested me, I knew that that was not right, because by this time I was already sexually active. I had already had a child, so I knew what he was doing was not right. And I also knew that if I told somebody, it was going to cause me to have to leave. And at that point, I was afraid. That was my first foster home, sister foster home, when I was a kid, when my mom got us, took it from her. And that foster home, even though it wasn't bad, it was just hard at that age being away from my mother. But no kid wants to be in no foster home. Kids want to be with their family. And so I didn't know what my next placement was going to be. And I knew if I would have said something, that was going to happen. But I also think about my uncle, my father's, and let's make this clear. He turned out not to be my blood father, but the man that I thought was my father. Um, I couldn't believe that his brother after what his my father had done to me. And by this time everybody in the family know about it. He had been arrested for it and everything, but he would come and he would try to sleep with me. And I felt like, yes, that was an easy target because your brother did what he did to his supposedly own child. Now here you come and thinking that. But again, by the time my uncle came to me, I knew, good touch and bad touch, and I knew right from wrong, and I was able to tell him no. But it just really bothered me to this day that he even attempted to do it, because you were supposed to be my uncle. We didn't know back then that this was not my blood family, but you were supposed to be my uncle. Why would you come do what your brother had been doing to me all this time? So yes, I did feel like I was a easy target for those, and I wasn't never open to anybody about my abuse. Anybody that knew about my abuse, they heard about it, through family talks or whatever, because I never been open about it, because it was always difficult for me to be open about it.
I have a question. So you did write that your father had showed you a tape. I think it was his cousin or his brother molesting the child. So do you think it's like, not your blood father, but do you think it's like a generational curse that they accepted?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's definitely because there were rumors in the family about the cousins sleeping with each other. This same cousin that he showed me the tape of, my father supposedly had, and this is his first cousin, by the way, and he has a sister. My father supposedly had slept with the sister and got her pregnant and had a baby by her. Now he told me that it was never proven in the family if that was his child or not. But even the child himself, because he's a full grown adult, he's older than me, and he believed that that's his biological, his father, his own cousin is his biological father. And so I started hearing rumors about them as kids always messing with each other. And then, of course, later on, I found out that my father was sleeping with his own sisters.
Right.
So it definitely was a generational curse. And the fact that nothing happened to him after they learned that he was touching his own sisters, like my grandparents didn't do anything about it, and they knew that. I don't know about my grandfather, but I know my grandmother knew because all of my aunties told me that my grandmother told them never to tell nobody. Don't go to the school, don't tell nobody that this happened. I don't know if they ever attempted or even got him the help that he needed, but the fact that he did it and got away with it, it just opened doors for him to just continue to do it to other little girls.
Right.
Like it was just a part of norm for them. And that also make me wonder what my grandmother's childhood life was like. Is this generational thing, for her to accept what her son did to her, not only to her daughters, but you later learned that he was actually doing it to your granddaughter as well. And it was like it didn't it may have affected them for a minute, but it wasn't enough to turn her own child in. Even to a point where I even thought that she was possibly protecting him when the police was looking for him after he abused me. So I don't know if that's a maternal thing because that's her son, or maybe something happened to her when she was young, and it's just a part of a generational curse. I really don't know.
Yeah. So that was another thing. I know how you said that the grandfather was really mean, but to me, that's just my opinion. He might have been trying to feel that he was going to beat some kind of demonic spirits out of you all by being so harsh, even though he didn't do the right thing. You understand what I'm saying? It was just he knew they were wicked or somehow, and that's all he can just probably thought that everybody was wicked because he didn't want them to his to his wife because he kept everybody away, including you. But he still didn't do the right thing.
Who did you mention? I'm sorry.
The grandfather, you was saying how aggressive he
Oh, okay.
was. And I said
Yeah,
maybe, you know,
yeah. I kind of heard bits and pieces that my grandfather was always a mean-spirited person. And he was very disciplinary when it came. I know he was very disciplinary when it came to his three youngest girls, because them the only ones I can remember as a child. My older uncles and aunties, they were out of the house and stuff like that, and they was adults. But I can remember my three youngest auntie, because the youngest auntie, her and I is 5 years apart. The one after her, her and I 7 years apart, and the one above her, I think we may be 8 or 9 years apart. So those three were still young, living in a household back then. And so I can remember the days of him disciplining them. And he was a very harsh disciplinary person. So the way he disciplined children, they were all disciplined the same as far as me and the rest of them. But there was something, maybe, I don't know. I know he did not like my mama. I heard that. I heard that he never liked my mother. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I never did anything to him personally. You know what I'm saying? As a kid, I understand that maybe, like you said, maybe that he saw some demonic spirits with my mom or his son, or I don't know. I have no clue. But as a child who didn't ask to come into this world, I didn't ask for any of that. And so he really, really treated me horribly. Like, I got a chance to see the difference between how he treated me, and because they had a whole lot more other grandkids. I was the oldest. So they had a whole lot more as the years came through. He was being the grandkids looked up to him. Even to this day, they love their papa. That's what they call him, papa. And the way he treated them, he deserved that title, because he treated them like a grandfather supposed to treat their grandkids. I saw that with my own two eyes. So I never had an issue with them calling him papa, because he was a papa to them. They didn't have the same grandfather that I had. The grandfather that I had hated the ground I walked on. Like, he hated that I ever existed. My so-called father told me he never thought that I was his grandchild from day one. That's fine and dandy. Maybe he had a reason to believe that I was not his grandchild, and it turned out that I wasn't his grandchild. But at the same token, that is no excuse to treat a child the way he treated me. Like, the verbal abuse and the mental abuse was so bad that it outweighed any abuse that I ever had. It outweighed. You know how people always say verbal abuse is worse than physical abuse? They are absolutely correct about that. Because even to this day, I have flashbacks of how my grandfather treated me, and I will bust into tears because it was just that bad. It was horrible. And I think that it may not be affecting me as much now had I got counselor for it. I never got counselor for how my grandfather treated me. And none of my other cousins, they was not around to see how my grandfather treated me. So they can't, they don't understand. I could never say anything bad about him to around them or to him, because they
but
was going
then
to defend.
they see when you didn't have a place to go, then they understand that.
They didn't even understand that. They
Okay.
wasn't around back then. They didn't
No.
they wasn't around back then. But even if you tried to tell them a story today, they
Mm,
can't see him as being that person, because they
understood.
don't we didn't have the same grandfather. The
Mm,
grandfather that they had is not the same grandfather that I have. So
mm,
I can't say anything negative. Like, a lot of them to this day, they are so angry about what I said in my book. But my book is my truth. They're
understood.
so angry about what I said in my book. Everything I said in my book, it is my truth. They didn't live through that. They were Half of them weren't even born. you,
Right.
you weren't even born, so you don't even know exactly how bad, or that other side. They never got disciplined by him. By the time they came around, oh, he was Papa for real. He wasn't
Mm.
whooping them or doing none of that type of stuff. Even my grandmother. My grandmother, in my younger youth, my grandma whooped me every now and then. Every now and
Mm.
then. She was never a big disciplinary person. Every now and then, my grandmother would whip me and my other cousin because we was the oldest two grandkids. But them other grandkids, I said, baby, y'all got away with everything. Like if she told us to get out there and rake that yard, we best to get out there and rake that yard, or we gonna hear about it. Those kids, she tell them go out there and rake that yard, they keep on going like she never said nothing, and she wants to do anything to them. Like y'all don't even got the same grandmother out here. You know what
The
I'm
energy
saying?
is exhausted. Because that's
Right.
what
You know what I'm saying?
my
That's a
brothers and
total.
sisters said. Because my mother had two sets of kids, and they felt my two older siblings felt my mother was harsher on them, and they said she was too tired to have us. So,
Right.
and she had me at a later age, and so they felt I got away with murder because she was too
Yeah.
tired, didn't have the
Yeah.
energy to do whatever. So it feels like I got away with murder, but
Yeah, when it comes to my grandmother, I tell my cousins all the time, baby, y'all got away with a lot. Cause me and Dwayne would have never got away with that type of stuff. But when it comes to my grandfather,
Mhm.
I am glad they did not experience what I experienced because that was horror. When
I'm
I say that
sure.
was horror, I had nightmares for years. I remember even after he passed away, I would call my grandmother in the middle of the night crying, and I couldn't even get it out of my mouth. But I'm so glad that my grandmother was the person that she was. It just really bothers me when I think about my grandmother because she was like the best person ever in my life. But I would say, Grandma, you please, will you please tell your husband to stay out of my nightmares? I would call her and tell her that in the middle of the night, and she will immediately start praying. She
Mm.
knew how her husband was towards me.
Mhm.
She knew how he was towards me. She the only one that never turned the blind eye to how her husband treated me. The rest of them, they saw it, but they would turn a blind eye. They didn't give a care. I think most of them thought I deserved it. They probably thought I deserved the way he treated me. But my grandmama never thought I deserved the way he treated me. She always felt bad, but back then, women had to give in to their husband. So she couldn't say anything. She couldn't do anything about what he was doing to me. And I know that. I know that now after I look at the history of the black family and I look at the history of the married family. Women had to give in to their husbands. So it was nothing that she could really do. I was thinking about that when I was watching the Michael movie the other day. How Catherine sat there and she hated to see her son get disciplined by her husband, but there was nothing she could do. That's how my grandmother was. My grandmother was that Catherine. She hated to see what my grandfather was doing to me, but it was nothing she can do about it besides to console me. He would come in my room in the middle of the night and start whipping me when the dishes wasn't clean, and it wasn't even my turn to clean the dishes. And
Mhm.
she would come in there and she would take over the dishes and she said, go back to bed, go back to bed. And she would just shake her head and she would start praying. My grandmother was a praying grandmother. He wasn't saved, but she was saved. And she went
Mm.
to church faithfully every Sunday. And she was a praying grandmother. And she always prayed that he would get better. I remember when she was in the hospital one time and she was going through her own health issues. He had been in the hospital in and out, and he had been diagnosed with having some type of colon cancer. I don't know what kind of cancer, prostate, some type of cancer. And he couldn't be left at home alone. He couldn't be left at home alone. So somebody always had to be at the house. And even though I couldn't be one of the ones at the house with him because I knew he couldn't stay in the ground I walked on. If I knocked on the door to come see my grandmother, he'd say, who is it? And I say, Sandra. And the first thing he'd tell me is, your grandmother ain't here. And he wouldn't even unlock the door. If my grandmother was not there, he wouldn't even open up the door and let me in. And so I just turn around and I'll leave. And so this time when he was in the hospital, his when he got out the hospital, my grandmother ended up in the hospital. Huh?
Michelle, can you mute your phone, please? Go ahead,
My
Sandra.
grandmother was in the hospital, and he was at home, and I went by the house just to check on him. Believe it or not, no matter how bad my grandfather treated me, I still loved him as a grandfather. I don't know why. I didn't know no other grandfather. My paternal grandfather passed away before I was born, so he the only other grandfather that I knew. And so, I mean, my maternal grandfather. So he the only grandfather that I knew. So I always loved him as a grandfather, and I cared about him no matter how bad he treated me. And I remember going by there just to check on him, just to see how he was doing. And I remember knocking on the door. And usually, if you knock on the door, my auntie would come to the door because my auntie always stayed in the house with him. But my auntie, she struggled with addiction. So every now and then, she would probably leave the house to go get her fix or whatever. But she'll come back because she'll stay there and watch my grandfather. This was a particular day she left him in the house by himself, and I was knocking on the door, and I was looking through the window, and I didn't see nothing. I was scared because I knew he was in there, and I was scared for him. I literally, from the bottom of my heart, was scared for him because I thought something had happened to him. And he wasn't coming to the door, and she wasn't coming to the door, so I knew she couldn't be there if he's not. And I'm calling the phone at the same time. I could hear the phone ringing from outside, and still nobody's coming to the door. And I'm beating on the door, and finally he came to the door, and he was like, "Who is it?" And I said, "It's Sandra." He was like, "What the hell do you want?" And he finally opened up the door. I said, "I didn't want anything. I was just checking on you to see how you was doing." "You don't need to check on me. I'm fine. Stay the hell away from my house." Oh my God, that hurted me so bad. But that was the first time that I found my voice. Out of all them times that yeah, and I was a full grown adult at this time. I had only had 2 kids. I don't know if I had the fourth one yet, but maybe I did have the 4 kids. I'm not sure. But I was a full grown adult. And that was the last time I stood up to him, and I turned around and I told him, "This is the last time you will ever talk to me that way." I went off on him so bad I could see my auntie coming down the gangway she was coming from the back of the house. And she heard me say some of the things that I said, some pretty bad things to him. But that was the first time I stood up to him. And I told him I never did nothing in my entire life besides love you. Even through all the verbal abuse, I did nothing but love you. And I said, all I wanted to do, you don't need to come back here. Stay away from my house, blah, blah, blah. And I ran home. I cried all the way home. And I hated to call my grandmother because I knew my grandmother was in the hospital and she was dealing with her own health issues. But my grandma was the only person I could talk to when it came to her husband. She was the only one that understood me. And like I said, she was the only one that did turn a blind eye. And I hated to call her and tell her about her husband because she was in a hospital. But when I called her, she could hear it in my voice because I had been crying. And she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Grandma, I love you. You know I love you, right?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "What happened?" I said, "Grandma, I will never, ever," and hear me good, I said, "I will never step foot in your house again until the day that man died." And those was my exact words. And my grandmother said, "Lord Jesus, what did he do this time?" And I told her what he had did. And she just, again, do what she do best. She started praying. And she said, "I hope he get it." I tell him all the time, if you don't get it together before it's too late, you're going to go to hell. You're going to end up in hell. And she's like, "Baby, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this has happened to you." She always apologized for how he treated me because she knew I didn't deserve that. And I didn't. I never went back to her house again. Now, my auntie stayed a couple of doors down. And so when I wanted to see my grandmother, usually I'll just pass by and she'll be sitting on her porch and I just beat my horn and wave and she'll wave back. But if I really wanted to, spend time with her, I'll either go up to her church where she went to church at because my grandma was faithful with her church, or I go to my auntie house and she'll just walk down there and come see me. And so everybody started telling me, "Papa want to know why you don't come down there no more. Papa want to know why you ain't coming there." And then my grandmama came there and she sat next to me. She said, "He down there saying, how come Sandra don't come over here no more?" And she said she looked at him and told him, how come she don't come over here no more? She said, well, if you wasn't such an old buzzard, she will be coming over here. And I was surprised that he noticed that I hadn't been coming. He actually noticed that I kept my word. I was not coming there no more. And I still didn't come no more over there until they told me that he was given a time. When they told me that his cancer had got to a point where they were only giving him 6 months to live, that is the only time I stepped back foot in the house. I said, maybe this is the time that I need to forgive him, because I knew he didn't have time. He didn't have that much time left. I think he ended up passing away 3 months after then. But when I stepped foot in the house, he was a totally different person towards me. I don't know if it's because he knew he was dying. He never apologized to me, but it was the first time he never yelled at me. It was the first time he never said anything. He actually had conversations with me. Like, I thought I would make him proud, because by this time I had to graduated with a bachelor's degree by this time. Like, I thought I was should be the proud grandpa that say, hey, I got a granddaughter that went and got her degree, and she got her house built from the ground up. And I thought by this time he would be very proud of me, you know and that was the first time that he and I had a real conversation. And I would come and visit him every so often up until he died. Even when he got ready to die, I was vacationing in Florida. I was vacationing in Florida, and I got a call telling me that the hospice said he had less than 24 hours. I cut my vacation short just to come home to be with my grandmother. But before we made it home, he had already passed away. But that's the type of dedication I had to him that he never gave me back in return.
Your story,
And I had,
I'm not sure is the right story. Go Tell on the Mountain, James Baldwin, when I think it's Go Tell on the Mountain, when it was two kids, and then the father hated the one kid because, so he had two kids. One was his kid naturally, and his kid was no good for nothing. And the father, he loved the no good for nothing kid, but then the other kid that was there, he did everything. Like, you went to school, got a degree, whatever. He was on the way, but the father hated that one kid because his seed himself is just evil. And it's like, I just hate that I have this other kid. I know it's not part of my seed. And he just couldn't accept that this, no matter what the boy did, and the boy, he just couldn't accept that his seed, how can I say, everybody else's seed was doing great, and his seed is just doing awful or doing things that they shouldn't do. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it kind of reminded me of. I'm not sure what story it was, but I think it was James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain, with the two kids. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that.
Yeah. I just wanted him. I guess I was just searching for the love from him. I never got that love. I think I would have probably even felt better if he would have even apologized. I think the nightmares probably would have ended if he would have apologized to me before he passed away. But because he never apologized to me, the nightmares just continued. Like, it continued all the way up until probably a couple of years ago, when all of a sudden the nightmares started turning into good dreams. Like, the nightmares were so bad to a point that even my grandmother had passed away, and she was treating me like he was. And my grandma ain't never treated me like he was. But that's how bad the nightmares had got, that he had turned my grandmother against me. But then all of a sudden, I started having these dreams where he was, I won't say being a grandfather, but he was being protective. Like, he was being the person I wished he was when he was living. And then all of a sudden they stopped. Like, I don't know if that was his way of coming to in my dreams to apologize, but he was this totally different person. Like, it just happened out of the blue. I had like two of those good dreams, and the dreams and the nightmares all stopped totally. And so I think I'm healed from that. Yeah.
I just wanted to say about your grandfather was when you did, when you admitted to your paternal grandmother about the sexual abuse of your father, um, she said she did know it, but your grandfather's response was to his son was, if you touch her again, I'm going to take you to the police station and file a report. Which once
Yes,
again,
and
you
I
giving
was
him you giving him another chance, meaning not we're not gonna take you to the police right
now.
now, but you do it
Right.
again, then we're gonna take you. Like it shouldn't be no again. That's what I had a problem with. Like you shouldn't wait for him to do it again, or want him to even do it again, or even say you got one more chance. You know what I mean? Like if you found out about it, take it to report. Report it to the police. But once again, when it's your son, your blood, you just don't want to do that. So that may be a
Mhm.
reason why the grandmother didn't say nothing. That's her son. You know what I mean? Or that's her, she just don't, like you said, she couldn't. Because then if she say something, then her husband gonna be mad. And then now, who knows what he gonna do to her. So I feel like a lot of times
Yeah,
back in them
it
days,
wasn't
people just
until
pushed up
later.
under the rug.
It wasn't until later when I found out what he did to my aunties, because they all came out with their stories later on, and that is when I realized that is the reason why my grandmother pulled me in the bathroom and asked me all together. At this time, I was living, mind you, I'm living with my father. And she just pulled me out of the blue in the bathroom. I never knew why she did it. I heard other people tell me, not from that side of the family, but from another side of the family. I heard other people tell me that they saw the signs, but they was afraid to ask. But my grandmother, she never said what was her reason for pulling me in the bathroom and asking me. But I remember being so fearful telling her, because she would be the first person that I tell that he was doing this to me. And I actually thought when my grandmother asked me and I told her the truth, I thought it would just stop. I thought she would. I didn't believe that she would send him to jail. No, I didn't believe it at that moment. I knew by her that being her son that she probably was not going to send him to jail, but I thought she would put enough fear in him that it would stop. Um, and it did not stop. And then one day I was over there and out of the blue I walked up on a conversation of my grandfather talking to my father. Like that was the first time I ever heard him stood up for me. And I remember him saying, if she tell us one more time, and she said us. So that means that my grandmother had to tell him, because I didn't talk to my grandfather. See, he was like, if she tell us one more time that you touched her, I'm going to take her up to the police station and I'm going to file a report. He was already still touching me. I just didn't say anything because I felt like, what was the point? You knew he was already doing it. I'm still living with him. You didn't do anything about it. What's the point of coming back and telling you? It was no point. It was no point. So he was already still. He didn't care. He just looked at him. He didn't say nothing. He looked at him and walked away like, yeah, whatever. It was no point. He knew that his parents was not going to turn him in. He knew that was not going to happen. His siblings, you know, they thought that they were doing something by telling me that he did it to them, when all it did was made me even more angry with them. Because at the time that I had no place to go, most of them had their own place. I could have lived with them. They didn't offer me to come stay with them. You're telling me that he did that to you and your mama told you never to tell nobody and don't go to the school and did that to that make me believe that you knew that he was probably over there doing that to me. Like, I don't care if you had to put an anonymous call in and say, hey, I don't care what y'all do with her, just get her away from him. Like, y'all all knew that your brother, your son, your nephew, your cousin was a predator. Y'all all knew this. None of y'all did one thing to protect me. But then you ridicule me, which is why my part of the title of my book is called My Family, My Darvel. You ridicule me and made me out to be the villain here. One of my aunties told me, what she said in her words, she told me that I benefited from it. How do you tell a victim of abuse that they benefited as a child from sexual abuse because the only way they could get money was by sleeping with their father. She have no idea how, even to this day, that statement she made to me, and we have hugged and kissed and loved on each other so many times since that day. But that statement that came out of her mouth lives with me forever because I never benefited from anything. That man used me as his personal sex toy right under y'all noses, even to a point where after all of this, and his girlfriend, who knew he was abused because she caught him on top of me, finally left him. And I had to move in back with my grandparents, and he moved in too. He stayed in the attic. My grandfather will make me go upstairs and go in that room with him. Like I couldn't sit nowhere around in the house. Like if he saw me, why are you go upstairs with your father? Go upstairs with your father. You don't care that your son is upstairs on top of me and doing the things that he's doing to me? I'm his sex toy now. He ain't got a woman. They didn't care. They was right down the stairs. Not one time did my grandmother sneak upstairs to see, to make sure. Not one time did anybody. They could have snuck upstairs and caught him if they was really concerned. That's just me. That if you was really concerned. You know, my aunties made sure, because they knew how he was, they made sure they protected their own kids from him. But they didn't care about protecting me. His other kid, the other grandkids, you ain't gonna see them saying anything negative about it because they didn't get a chance to meet that side of my father because they got protected. I didn't have nobody to protect me.
Well, remember you stated in the book that you said that um he didn't think he was the grandfather didn't think you was really his granddaughter, remember? And then your father didn't really think he was your daughter. So I think because they felt like she not really blood, we don't really think she a part of our family. So whatever, toss her
Right.
over, do whatever to her. She ain't really our blood. Because it seems like if you blood, not saying all the time, no, in not all cases, but if you blood, we leave her alone. But if you ain't, you just another, you know,
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
victim, another prey. You're just another person. So it's like we're not gonna really feel no type of way. But if we in
Exactly.
our mind know that this really ain't one of our blood
Right.
kids or whatever, grandkids, whatever it may be,
Yeah,
then
because
then it then it's okay.
the rumors circulated all of my life. All of my life, there were rumors to a point where it got to the cousins. The cousins didn't never think that I wasn't their real cousin. They always thought I resembled somebody in the family. But the rumors continued to circulate. Some of the cousins would come ask me. They would say, I heard that, Rodney is probably not your dad. I said, yeah, I heard the rumors. I heard them. I heard them. But I only had one, well, maybe two aunties that will tell me that it didn't matter if I was their blood niece or not, you're still our niece. You know, even though I didn't feel like I was treated like the other nieces or I was protected like the other nieces. Um, it just, I don't know. I guess because my mom was gone, she never really introduced us to her side of her family, her maternal side of the family. I didn't have a family. And even though I knew that there was a possibility that he may not be my real father, I don't think I was ready to hear it. I don't think I was ready for the actual proof because at that point I was feeling like I wouldn't have nobody, even though I
Yeah,
really
and that's the
didn't.
only father you have. And that's the only
Right.
father that you know right now.
Right.
Your mom
I
just
wouldn't have
passed. You don't want to
nobody. You know
lose
what
them.
I'm saying? So, and it just always was a rumor that went through. But like I said, as I reflect back on my past and I look at the difference of how my other cousins were treated, even by the aunties and the uncles, and even by my grandfather, I see that what you guys just said, that they knew that it was a possibility that I wasn't blood and they was not going to treat me like they treated their blood because they didn't. I just was a part of the family, but just not a blood member of the family. Because I see they got friends that's like real close family. You know how when you get close to a family and you start treating them like family, they treat them more like family than they do me, you know? So yeah, I remember when my uncle used to work at the McCormick place. They used to have shows there all the time, and I remember the time they had the Ringley Brothers circus that came, and he got tickets for all the kids in the family except for me and my brother. All the kids got to stay home from school just to go and see this show. And I remember being excited because I'm thinking, when I'm hearing all the kids going, me and my brother, we going too, only to find out he didn't get tickets for us. Like that let me know right then and there that they never thought of us as family. Like I remember sitting in that window crying when they all took off and went to see that show. My half sister, which was my father's real daughter, she even have a sister that's not my father's daughter. They even took her. She's the stepchild. They took my half sister, which is a part of the family, because that is the father's real daughter. And then they took her sister, and her sister's not. But they left me and my brother behind. Like they not a part of this family. And I always complained about never being told when there's any type of functions. Like people will call me and be like, "Are you going to such and such?" I said, I didn't know nothing about, or they'll call me and say, "Why you didn't come to such and such?" I'm like, I didn't know anything about it. I said, y'all know that y'all don't reach out to me when there's any family functions. No,
So
nobody
you
reaches out to me.
so you
I
were excluded a lot. You were excluded.
Always excluded. Always excluded. I don't never know about anything until after it's done. Even when the deaths in the family, it was a few deaths I found out through Facebook. Like nobody picked up a phone and called me and told me anything. I learned about these deaths through Facebook. All other family members, they picked up the phone and called them. I got friends that'll call me and say, "Hey, I want to call you and tell you that so and so passed away before you read about it on Facebook." And this is not family members, these are just friends. But they wanted me to know before I found out about it on Facebook. But my family didn't do that. I will have to literally find out about this on Facebook. And see, and this is what I'm saying. These people never ever treated me like family. Like I wasn't, they treated me like I was not their blood.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of times when you're not blood, you are excluded. You're treated very different than
Yes,
those that are,
exactly. Yes,
very different. And you can feel it, and
exactly.
they do it deliberately too, to let you
Yes,
know you ain't family. You're not
exactly.
saying it verbally, but your actions is showing it very
Exactly.
vividly. Yeah, vivid.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I wanted to know, not having a stable life as a child, how has that affected you?
It affected me in the way that I parent my own kids. It really did because when I got pregnant with my oldest child, it wasn't a planned pregnancy. Matter of fact, the only planned pregnancy was my oldest twins. They was the only planned pregnancy because I was married then and we planned to have a family. The first two kids was never planned, but when I had them, I remember telling myself that I want to give my kids a better life than me. I remember telling myself I never want my kids to experience the same things that I had gone through. And there's a lot of things that I wish I would have done differently. Some of the bad habits of the way I was raised, I did pass on as a parent, raising my kids, and I wish the adult kids, because the three little ones is different. But the adult kids, I wish I would have done things differently, like the discipline. I really wish I did not discipline my adult children the way I did. And I only did it because that was the way I was disciplined, and I didn't know no other way. But as I got a lot older, when I had the youngest ones, I understand that that is a family curse. I understand that discipline using corporal punishment is something that's been passed down ever since slavery days, and it had to stop. I also feel like I overdid a lot of things. Like I was too busy trying to impress my kids with lavishing them with a lot of expensive gifts and expensive clothing, just so they could have the stuff that I never had a chance to have, because my mom was poor and we didn't get to have the name brand anything, we always got picked on a lot, and I didn't want my kids to be picked on. So I would go and I would buy them stuff, just spend out of my means, just go buy Jordans and different stuff just to keep them from being teased as a kid, and buy 'em every video game and stuff so that they can be busy into the video games. It just like I had a TV in every room only because I couldn't have one TV in my room because my grandfather would not allow me to watch TV. I just did everything different, and I realized years later that I did not have to do all of those things. You know what I'm saying? That I should have been providing them with more love than all of those material things. But I didn't know how to show them that love because that love was never shown to me. Nobody never loved me. I thought that this is what I had to do to get my kids to love me, give my kids the best, and they will always say, "Oh, mommy is the best. Take them to the best places, buy them the best outfits, get them the soon as the video games first come out, they spent more time on them video games than spending more time just sitting down and having a conversation with mama." I wish I can go back and change the hands of time and do things all different. I'm doing those things now with the three little ones, but I wish I can go back and do it differently back then. But it was the way my lifestyle was and the way things I went through in life. I tried my best to shield my kids from moving from place to place to place. The one thing I could say is that my kids always lived with me. Now, it was one time my uncle had to take my oldest daughter off of my hand because I just was having a lot of rebellious issues with her. But my kids always stayed with me. They was not like me and my brother where we had to bounce around from place to place. They always stayed with me, and we always stayed in our own place. We never had to go stay nowhere else. However, being a single mom, having to depend on government assistance, I was on Section A, and being on Section A came with some of its downsides. And one of the downsides is always having to move, because Section A has strict rules about what landlords need to do to keep up the places. And if the landlords are not keeping up the places, Section A say, "Hey, you got to pack it up and leave." So I was on Section A for 10 years, and me and my kids moved 7 times in those 10 years. Now, I think that was probably just about the amount of time me and my mom and my brother moved too. But that was 7 times in 10 years, even though we always lived in our own places and my kids always had their own room. It still was not the type of life I wanted for them, because I didn't want them to have to be bouncing from school to school, you know what I'm saying, and picking up different type of friendship to a point where they start hanging out with the wrong crowds and stuff like that. I did not become stabilized until I got my own home. I've been in my home. I had my home built from the ground up when I was 30 years old, after I just got my master's degree. And we've been in this home for 24 years now. So this is the first time we have been in one spot for a long time. So yes, there's a lot of my past that really affected the way I raised my 4 adult children.
Okay.
And I was also overly protective. I think that has a lot to do with why my daughter was so rebellious. I had a hard time letting them stay over places, like when they wanted to go stay at friend's house or stay here and stay there. I wasn't open to that, and so they felt closed in. They felt like I didn't allow them to do things, especially the oldest daughter. I didn't allow her to do, the stuff she wanted to do, and so she became very rebellious and started doing it on her own. But she didn't understand back then what I had gone through and how I had lack of trust, having my kids around, certain places or being places they didn't need to be when they had a home. I tried to make my home as comfortable as possible where they didn't have to want to go and stay at another place. But you can give your child the world and it's not enough for them. If they want something different, they're gonna want it different. It doesn't matter, you know.
Um, I know that you first got pregnant at 15, and then you got pregnant at 17. Can you talk about the postpartum depression that you dealt with?
Okay, so I didn't have postpartum depression until I got pregnant with the twins. That was my first postpartum depression. I got pregnant with the twins at the age of 24. That was my adult twins. And when I got pregnant with them, my husband at the time did something stupid and he ended up going to jail. He went to jail when I was probably about 3 months pregnant, I believe. And because he had a criminal history, he ended up getting sentenced to 7 years and he had to do half of that. So he had to do 3.5 years. So when I was calculating the time of 3.5 years, I knew that my sons would be about 3 years old. At the time, I didn't know I was having boys, but I knew that my twins would be 3 years old by the time he came home. And I knew what life was like raising the two daughters because I raised them for the first 6 years as a single parent and with the father not being actively involved in their life. And so I knew how hard it was to raise them. And now we're talking about two kids the same age. And so I remember trying to abort. I was 3 months pregnant and I started looking into when I found out he was probably not going to come home until the twins would be 3 years old. I started looking into late stage abortions. And I kind of let my friends, including his grandmother, was one of them that talked me out of not doing it. They was like, "Please don't do it. We'll help you. Don't do this." And I was like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." So the depression really started at that moment. It started like before I got to before I had them. And I think that may have also caused me to go into early labor, even though they say with, multiple gestation, it is always a high risk of early labor. I went into labor with them at 29 weeks. Like I said, I was mainly depressed through the pregnancy because I just kept thinking about having to raise these babies by myself and him being away. And even though people always tell you, "Oh, I'm gonna be there for you," we know how that go. When the time actually get here, they not actually there like they say they are gonna be there. And so postpartum depression, I used to always think was, and excuse my French when I say that, I used to always think that was like a white woman's disease that they use as an excuse to harm their kids after they have children. That's what I used to always think because every time I saw anything about postpartum depression, it always followed up with a white woman killing their kids after giving birth. And I used to be like, "Oh, that's just an excuse to get away with the crime that they did." I didn't know that that was real until it actually happened to me. When I came home after the boys was born, I slipped into a real bad depression. Like I cried day and I cried night, and I didn't know what I was crying for half of the time. I was so sick. Like I didn't know it was really I never thought about harming the kids, but I always thought about what life would be like if I didn't have 'em. You know what I'm saying? But it never crossed my mind that I want to harm my kids. It wasn't that bad. But I just kept thinking about what if I just would have went on ahead and ended the pregnancy instead of listening to people and all this other stuff. And so I reached out to Lawrence Hall Youth Service, which is one of the programs I was under when I was awarded to the state, and they told me about DCFS helping families even if you don't have a case with them. Like I never knew that you can get help from DCFS even if you don't have a active abuse case with them. They do help families, and I want y'all out there who's listening. If you're going through issues and you need help, never ever fear going to DCFS. They're not you may think that they're out here just to take your kids. No, they are trying to help the kids stay in your house. And if you just admit to them that you need help, they will give you all the help that you need. I did not know that they help you even if you did not have kids. And when I called them and I told them that I needed the help, they sent the help immediately. They sent me a homemaker services. And the homemaker, I went through about three before I got the perfect one. and she was the best. And I believe had it not been for her, I probably would have done some harm, at least to myself. But she helped me through it. She was a Christian woman, and she, when she came over, she would cook, she would clean, she would play the Christian music that really got underneath my skin. And it's just everything about her was just this motherly person. And she helped me a lot with the boys where I did not have to always depend on somebody to come out to the house to help me or anything like that, because she would be there, and she just went above and beyond. And so I would say by the time the boys got like about 9 months old, the depression just started fading away. So by the time they was one, it was gone. I was a whole different person.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the good thing. I'm glad that you let the people know. That's why I want you to talk about it, because some people, like I say, may be going through it and don't know that. So yeah, they sent the homemaker out and they paid for the services and everything. So that's really
Mm-hmm.
good. A good resources for women that's going through that.
Yeah.
You stated that you had a child with behavior issues. I believe your daughter, she was kicked out of daycare and you began having suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, my oldest daughter, she gave me the flux. I'm telling you. I can't to this day, I can't just blame everything on her. I think that I didn't do a good job raising her. I was only 15 years old when I had her. So I was a child, a baby having a baby. So I didn't do a good job raising her, but I did my best. I didn't put her through a lot of the things that my mom put me through. So I made a lot of mistakes when it came to her, but and again, her being the oldest child, she really was the one that I always kept dressed down, looking cute, and felt like I gave her the world. But it took my little niece who ain't but a few months older than her. She said, Auntie Sandra, that's just it. She said, you give her too much. You give her so much to she start expecting more. And when she don't get that extra that she want, then she act out. And that's exactly what was happening. When I didn't give her what she wanted, she acted out. So if she wanted to go and stay the night at a friend house, if I said no, she would run away and go to this friend house. If she wanted a particular baggage or a particular outfit and I didn't have the money to give it to her, she'd go try to steal it. It was so much that she started putting me through. And I was already going through a lot as it is. The twins wasn't but just 1 years old. I tried to explain to the school that she was attending at the time about her behavior problems. It just went through one ear and out the other until it to a point where one time they called DCFS on me. I can't remember what they called DCFS. I think it was something she went back and told them that wasn't true. And so after I had a conversation with the school, I said, I can't believe y'all would even call DCFS on me. I told y'all about her behavior issues. Then they start seeing the side of her. And now they want to reach out and help. Now they want to say, well, have you tried this? Or have you tried that? Or have you tried doing counseling? Have you tried doing this? I tried all of this, woman, and I even tried to explain this to you, but you didn't listen to me. Instead, y'all thought I was this bad parent because she was coming back telling y'all all this stuff, and then DCFS was getting involved. And then because my sons was born premature, they went in and out the hospital a lot. And so that made it difficult for me to work. So I had to put my sons in daycare, which was not a good idea, especially for the little twin, because he had really low immune system. But when school let out, I had to put the bigger girls into that same daycare center. It was kinder care. I put them all in kinder care so that I can go to school. This is when I decided to go back to school. I went back to school. I was going to Wright College at the time. And one time she was at the daycare, and the daycare called me and told me that her and another little girl snuck out the daycare through the lunchroom, because the lunchroom had the back door open, and the daycare was directly across the street from the mall. And the little girls both went over to the mall, and they stole like over 700 and some dollars worth of merchandise. So they was at the police station at the time I got the call. When I went to the police station, when they took me to the room where they hid her at, I could see all the bags of the merchandise that they recovered from the kids. And the police sat me down and they talked to me and they told me that, and I was really disappointed because, like I said, I gave this girl the world. This girl didn't want for nothing. There was no reason for her to do that. But everybody, even the daycare center, was kind of pushing it off on the other little girl. They think the other little girl may have talked her into doing that because they said they had trouble with the other little girl prior to my daughter coming there. But my daughter knew better, you know. And so they said that the mall stores decided not to press charges because they felt embarrassed that these two little girls got away. Because these was little preschool kids, like they were school age, but they were still small kids. And so as a result, the daycare put them out, you know. And then another time, when I had to move back to Chicago and I was still in school, I put in a daycare center right across the street from my grandmother's house. And the daycare was having so much problems with her to a point where they would not allow her to go on any of the field trips no more unless I went with her. They said in the past, when the kids went on the field trips, they'd leave her behind with the daycare director. But the daycare director said she couldn't do her job and watch her at the same time. So she was like, if you're not going to be able to chaperone, which I couldn't chaperone, but if you're not going to be able to chaperone on a trip, then she can't go because every time she go on a trip, she leave away from the group and they can't find her. They always looking for her, trying to figure out where she at, you know. And so as a result, the daycare decided that they was the one that said she needed to be evaluated. Well, she did get evaluated, and they did determine that she, had some issues and stuff. But then they ended up putting her out of daycare too. And so when she got into kindergarten, same issue. All the kindergarten kids are gathered around for story time, and she'll walk away from the circle, and they have to keep chasing her down. And at the end of the school year, they had this IEP meeting. They said, we think she'll be okay in a self-contained class, whereas more teachers and less students, and she'll get more attention. And it just became overwhelming. And I was real close to my grandmother's sister at the time, and I would call her and I would tell her that I just want to end my life. I said, I can't take this no more. This is just too much. This is overwhelming. And she would pray. She would pray all the time. She would pray that demon away from me. Her daughter, which I call my cousin, took her off of my hands for a little bit. That turned out to be a disaster, but that's a whole nother story. But, it was just hard because, again, I didn't have that support system. I didn't have, like, my aunties, they had issues with their kids too, but they can always send their kids to my grandmother. It was no problem. I couldn't send my kids to my grandmother because my grandfather treated my grandkids my kids the way he treated me. So my kids was not welcome at that house no more than I was welcome at that house. So when they had issues with their kids, they didn't have nothing to worry about. My grandma can raise them with no problem. They can go live there. My grandfather didn't have no problem with them staying there. So they had that support system. I didn't have that support system. So I had to deal with everything that came as being a mother, being a single mom. I had to deal with that all by myself, and it was difficult. It was difficult. Being a young single parent is not easy at all. You there? Look like the screen kind of
Hey,
crashed
Tanisha,
in.
Tanisha, you're frozen. I'm not sure if she's still on. Oh, she hung up. Hopefully she comes back.
Oh, okay.
Wait. So did someone tell you to write this book as part of your therapy, or you decided that you wanted to do that?
No, believe it or not, my daughter, who at the time did not know about the DNA discovery,
Mm-hmm.
she was the one, when I first found out
What
about
made
the
you do
DNA.
that too, also?
Yeah, when I first found out about the DNA discovery, again, I slipped into a depression.
Okay.
And I started distant myself from everybody because I didn't want nobody to notice that I was depressed, and people started questioning. But my kids knew something was wrong. And my daughter would say, Mama, you know what I would do whenever I get into a situation like you? She said, I will journal it. She said, why don't you go get you a journal? And she said, why don't you write down what's going on? She said, that is going to help you. She said, I don't know what you're going through. And she didn't know what I was going through because I hadn't told nobody. And she was like, why don't you just write it down? And I did that. I did exactly what she did. I went and I bought me a journal. I bought me a nice little journaling pen, and I just wrote. I think I got up to like 100 pages, and I said, why don't I just type this into a book?
Wow.
So I tell her all the time that you're the reason why I wrote this book. Because if you wouldn't have told me to journal this stuff, because I'm reading the stuff back to me. I'm not going back and correcting any mistakes or anything or whatever, but I'm reading it back to myself, and I'm like, you know what, this would be a good book.
It's a good book. It's hard. How can I say it's hard
It's
for
a
me?
hard read. It's definitely
It's
a
a hard
hard
read. Not
read.
that it's difficult to follow through, but it's a hard read to see that abuse being happening to a child. Especially for
Right.
me, it didn't happen to me. But how you said you were strict my mother was strict to me. But with her case, she never talked about abuse like that. The only thing she talked about, because she came up from the South. This was like in 1930s or where she came up from the South, but 40s. When she came up from the South, because she didn't want to work on the farm anymore, the owners was like, she can't stay here and live here. So she came up to the South and she lived with her auntie. So she never lived with her mother. And that was another thing. She lived, even though she knew who her mother was and her father, she didn't live with them. She lived with her grandparents. But when she came up here and she stayed in her auntie house, her auntie had a lot of company. And she said the guys would come in, all the kids laying on the floor, they would come and just be groping on the kids and stuff like that. So when she told me that story, but when, as you were saying, you were strict to your daughter, I literally couldn't cross the street. And I couldn't spend a night over anyone's house. I didn't retaliate or anything. I just thought, okay, yeah, I just can't spend a night over her house because my mother, she listened to Christian music and all that stuff. She just felt, no, you're not going to do that. And she had already told me the story about how these men had treated her. And she was just a teenager and they coming in getting free feels. And they knew that what they were doing. But at the same time, I understood that her fear of something like that would happen to me. So when you was like, your daughter rebel, I didn't rebel, but I understood her fear that she didn't want me to be abused, or where she didn't want men to just come and freely teach me. So when you said that, she was I couldn't go across the street. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. So, and I couldn't spend the night over at everybody's house. And I couldn't even eat people's food. That's how strict she was, because she didn't want, whatever, because she's seen, I didn't know you can't eat everybody's food, but you know how they say they pray over it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's just, that's what she did. But she didn't explain to me why I couldn't eat everybody's food. I didn't find that out until I was later an adult, because I was over my friend's house and they was over there and they were just cleaning these greens, and I didn't know they were cleaning greens. They was actually taking paper towel, wiping the greens off. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? It was like, we cleaning. Right. And I said, well, now I know why my mom whooped me. Somebody
right. Food. Like, I ain't never seen it clean quite like that.
But she didn't explain that. So how can I say? Some things she explained and some things she didn't. So like how you said your daughter rebelled and you wish you would have explained. I think she probably would have understood more if you explained it more. And she probably would have understood why she couldn't do or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't. I mean, my kids knew somewhat about my past abuse. They didn't know everything. A lot of what they know, of course, they heard it through the rumors like everybody else in the family. But I never went in depth with them. I never told them all the details that I put in the book. Like, even when I wrote the book, I told them I need y'all to read the book, because I had a hard time just coming out telling them. And then after they read the book, they was just shaking their head. They was like, Mama, why did you never tell us this? I didn't know how to tell them.
Right.
But I remember my uncle, who took my daughter off my hand for a minute, He's a Christian man too, and he said that one time, he had a long conversation with her, and he was asking her, why do you put your mom through so much trouble? He's like, your mom is doing the best she could. He's like, you should be proud of your mom. Your mom, never had y'all left off at nobody's house, and y'all
Mhm.
always, went without nothing. And she's like, well, I don't never. Oh Lord, this thing finna start beeping. She was like, she don't never let us go nowhere. She don't never let us do anything and this, that, and the other. And he said he talked to her. He said, have you ever sat and talked to your mom and understand why she don't never let y'all go nowhere? He said he told her. He said, your mama went through a hard life. Your mama, he said he told her everything, but that's still, I mean, telling that to a child, they don't understand. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Especially if they've never been abused before. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So they didn't understand. She still didn't understand, even after he told her that this is why your mom don't allow y'all to, go places like that. I mean, she really rebelled when I didn't let her do a lot of things. I just couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
So did
Because
you teach them about good touch, bad touch? Because I noticed you had used that a lot in your book. No. Okay.
yes, and that's another thing that's another thing that I failed as a parent with the adult children. I did not teach them about good touch and bad touch. I didn't teach them about good touch and bad touch. I didn't tell them about the abuse. I did often ask them if anybody touched them. Now that's something that my mom never did. My mom never asked me if anybody ever touched me or, but I often asked them, and they will always say no, 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 no. I often asked them about that. They never asked me why. I remember even with her father, I was like, if your father ever tried to, Mom, don't you know if my daddy ever touched me, I will come back and tell you, my daddy ain't never ever touched me, this, that, and the other. I said, well, I'm just asking. You know what I'm saying? Because I know what happened to me. So I be wanting to know. So I did ask a lot if anybody touched it, but I do admit that I did not teach them. The three little ones, yes, I teach them about good touch, bad touch all the time, and they learning a lot. It's taught a lot in school. I'm glad that the school have finally implemented that into the schools, to teach the kids about good touch and bad touch. They didn't have that, back when we were younger, and I'm not sure if they had it in my daughter and them age time neither, but it's definitely implemented now. So that's a good thing.
I wanted to know, oh, just before, because it happened to me, I had to get my charger. So if anybody got to get their charger, I would advise y'all to go do that. Because the battery is kind of going down. But I wanted to know, where did you go to take your free classes that helped you pass your GED and Constitution test? So and you can help
Uh,
anybody out there.
Yeah, so at the time I was living in Des Plaines, Illinois, and I had searched, back then we had the World Wide Webs. And I had searched free GED classes, and it came up this college that was like in a town the next town over, and the town, and it was, you go to the and that's basically where you can go now. I'm a caseworker now, so we kind of send our customers that's trying to look for trying to get a GED or whatever, go to the city colleges. Most of the city colleges, they offer them for free. Some of the like if you in a suburb or something like that, you can go to the county. They have programs that offer free GED classes. Now the GED classes may not be at the college itself. They may offer it at the library, or they may offer it somewhere else that they're renting out some place. But there is some places that offer these classes. What they do is they first have you to come in and test just to see where you are at, just to see where they need to start you at. Do they need to start you at the very, very beginning? Do they need to start you at the level or whatever? And so when I went, honestly, I took the test and they told me, oh, based on your result, you could just go take the test. You don't need the classes. I'm like, okay, fine. So I went and I took the test, but I didn't pass. I took the test. I did not pass. I did not pass the Constitution. So I don't know how they do things today, but back then, to get a GED, you had to pass the Constitution. I didn't pass the Constitution, and I didn't meet the requirements for the math. So you have to meet a certain number for each of the subjects in order to get the full to pass the GED. So the math part I didn't pass. So I went back to that same college. I'm like, yeah, y'all told me I didn't need the classes, but hey, I couldn't pass this and I couldn't pass that. So they gave me where I can go because they didn't do the Constitution classes there, but they told me where I can go to do the Constitution. And actually the place that they sent me to do the Constitution, I was able actually to do the Constitution test there. So you can do the classes there and you can do the test there. And then, but the math, I actually had to do some math courses with them to build myself up. It took a while because I'm not really good at math. So I had to start at the very basic and move to, the intermediate and move myself up. And then I went back and I took it and I passed it. So I was so super happy about that. And I immediately ran and enrolled into college. I'm like, I'm starting over fresh. Once I get this GED, I'm going to college. You don't have to have a GED. I learned back then, you don't have to have a GED or a high school diploma to go to college. The only problem is if you expect financial aid to pay for it, you have to have a GED or high school diploma. Otherwise, you'll be paying out of your pocket. So they don't pay for none of that. And then when it's time to distribute your degree, you have to have that in place. So they will let you enroll in the classes, but you won't get anything until you have gotten that GED or a high school diploma.
I have a question because I'm not from the Illinois area. What is a constitution?
The Illinois Constitution test, like you have to know about the Illinois laws. They want you to know about the laws of the state of Illinois. So they have the U.S. Constitution and then they have the Illinois Constitution. So in order to get your GED, you have to be able to pass the Illinois Constitution. Now in college, I think you have to have the U.S. Constitution to graduate some colleges. I don't know.
In Illinois.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Illinois. You have to be able to pass the Illinois Constitution. That's where you just learn about the branches of the Constitution, you learn a lot about
I understand.
the political.
They don't make us do that. Well, they haven't made me do it. I have never taken it because it's just different. That's why I was curious what it was.
Yeah, you have an Illinois Constitution and you have a U.S. Constitution. So some colleges they do require the U.S. Constitution. That depends on what college you go to.
Well, I understand. I'm originally from Michigan, but they have never asked me. And then I went online to University of Phoenix. They didn't ask me for that either. So, and I was living in Illinois when I went back to school there, and they still didn't ask me for that. That's why I was curious what it is and what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that information and those resources. You stated that that's why victims are afraid to report their abusers because people do not believe them. For example, Aunt Kathy, because a lot of people are being abused, but they don't tell people, and maybe that's why people are silent and don't say anything because they feel like when they do tell someone, whether it's in their household, a family member, or whomever, they won't be believed. The person will say you lying, or it could be your mom's boyfriend, whoever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the part of the reason why they don't believe it is because they don't know the same person you know. Like I said about my grandfather and my other cousins, they didn't have the same grandfather that I have. So it's hard for them to believe that he treated me the way that he did because he didn't treat them the same way. And that's the same way with sexual abuse. If it's your father who has been the father of the year and you've been daddy's girl all your life and he always gave you everything that you ever wanted, you can't possibly see him being a predator to another little child. We're not seeing the same person. You know, that's daddy. That's daddy. And daddy was different towards how he was to me. So that's the biggest stigma when it comes to not believing, because they think they know that person and that they've never saw that side to that person. So it's hard for them to believe that that person is capable of doing some stuff like that. Now, my Aunt Kathy, it's funny because my Aunt Kathy was raped as a child. She actually had her first child, I want to say either at the age of 10 or 11, her oldest son. They only like 11 years apart. So she had her oldest son at the age of 11 as a result of rape. And the only reason why she had to give birth to him is because her mom at the time would not let her give up the child. Now, that same child is the same child that groped me as a child, and he is listed in my book. So, Aunt Kathy, she never even read my book, and that's the thing that bothered me about people that make these false revelations about what they think they know when they hadn't even heard the story. So somebody else that read the book, a couple of other people that read the book came back and they pointed certain things out. They pointed it out purposely because they knew that was her son. And they probably came and said, did you know that your son was in this book as being one of the abusers? And she had a hard time believing that her son would do such a thing. So when I talked to her, the first thing she asked me is, how come I didn't tell her? And I told her that I didn't tell her because I didn't know how to tell her. I said, but it was told to you. She argued me up and down that it was never told to her. Yes, it was. I remember that as clear as day. I tell people all the time, if you don't remember anything from your past, you don't never forget trauma, because it traumatized me the way she responded to it. The only person that I told that her son was touching me was her niece, which I also call my cousin. And I remember telling her niece about what my Aunt Kathy's son was doing to me. And one day her niece decided she was going to go back and tell her cousin what I said and tell her auntie what I said. And she confronted me. She don't remember that day. I remember that day as clear as day when you confronted me and you told me, you called me every name in the book and told me that I was never going to be nothing. I wanted to be like your daughter. And I don't know if she called me a hoe, because I've been called a whore so many times. It's unreal, but I don't know if she was one of the ones that called me that. But she called me every name in the book and told me her son would never do no such thing or nothing. Like, she don't remember. She's a lot older now. I don't expect you to remember because it didn't happen to you. It happened to me. So you're not going to remember stuff that didn't happen to you, you know. And so after her and I had that conversation, I never talked to her again. And that was funny because her and I used to talk at least 2 or 3 times a week. Not to mention, she was one of my biggest supporters of my book. And I remember saying that there is one person, which I still didn't name that person in my book out of respect for her kids because she's no longer with us. I remember telling her that I didn't want to name a particular person. She's like, no, if you're going to name all the abusers, you need to name all of them. Not knowing that her son was one of them, you know. And so once you found out it was your son, all of a sudden y'all having these bad conversations. So I found out through other family members that her and other family members be talking on the phone about, you know, what I wrote in the book and how she be saying, I don't believe that. That's not true. We never stayed there. She never stayed there. And so that just really, really made me disappointed at her. And I told her, you was my biggest supporter of writing this book, and now you have became part of my Darvo. Because y'all just believe that I just made stuff up and just threw it in the book just for what? What am I gaining from this? I wrote my book to tell my story and to help others tell their story. I didn't write my book for financial gain. It's not even about how much sales I get from this book. It's about getting the story out there and helping others. There's so many people. I've had so many people that reach out to me and told me that they're so glad that I spoke up because this happened to them and they can't find it. Some of them still saying they're struggling telling their story and they want to tell it so bad. They're afraid that the family is going to turn on them. They're afraid that the family secret is going to get out and their family. I said, you know what? I knew it. I prepared myself. I knew it. I had a counselor. I'm still in counselor. I have a trauma counselor, not a trauma counselor. What do you call them? When you victim of abuse, they're assigned to what do you call it that they assign you to when you're a victim of abuse? Anyway, she warned me. She knew I was going to write the book, and she warned me. She said she even sent me a lot of literature and stuff about what to expect and how families was going to react once the news get out there. So I prepared myself. So once the book got out there, I knew one by one that the backlash was coming. And I didn't care because it was my truth. And if you're gonna not talk to me no more because I told my truth or I let the family secret out, then so be it. I don't care because this is happening too much. And just when we think that it's still not happening no more, it's still happening. Kids today are still dealing with this. They're still dealing with sexual abuse or physical abuse or any other type of abuse, and that's being swept under the rug. That some of these parents know that it's happening. Like mothers know that their child is being abused by their boyfriends and stuff like that, and they are calling their child a liar and stuff like that. Girl, you know your child ain't gonna make no stuff up like that just because she wants you and your boyfriend to break up. You don't know how hard it is to tell anybody that somebody is abusing them. So if a kid come tell you that somebody is abusing them, 9 times out of 10, they are not that's the truth. That's not an easy thing to tell as a kid. That is the hardest thing for a kid to tell is when somebody is abusing them. That is so hard for a child to tell. I don't think no child would just say that just out of spite or to get mad or whatever. Now, if they was an older teenager or older whatever, something like that, and they mad at mama and they want to get mom or whatever, maybe. But a kid, no. They gonna make that stuff up. They're not gonna make that stuff up.
I wanted to say, was the counseling named domestic violence counseling or survivor
Yeah,
counseling?
they're not domestic violence. They're
Trauma
survivor counseling.
survivor
They're
counseling. Okay.
Trauma recovery
trauma. Yeah,
specialist.
trauma. They help. They
I
help.
was just listing all of them that they had.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
women.
had trauma informed therapists, trauma recovery specialists. They have narcissistic abuse recovery, domestic violence advocates.
That's what it is. She's an advocate, but
Mm-hmm.
it's called sexual abuse advocate. They
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse advocates. So they advocate for, and they have been nice because they have been advocating for me because I wanted to bring charges against the abuser that impregnated me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been supportive of that and helping me, with that. Of course, because of my daughter, I stopped the charges on that. But yeah, they're sexual abuse advocates here to help you, even if the abuse happened as a child. They know that it still affect you today. Let me get
Okay.
my charger for my phone. Yeah, so yeah, I have a sexual abuse advocate, and I also have a NPE therapist.
Okay. I do want to let the people know that you were abused from the age of 6 until you were 15, and you did eventually, you were, I believe, molested more by your father, and you did eventually tell him no. So I do want the people to know that, and then that's pretty much kind of when it kind of ceased. Um, Once you found out that you were pregnant, you stated that's why victims you would now you said something about you have someone to love and who will love you back unconditionally. So when you was pregnant, you, I believe, felt that type of way, like I got somebody to love me now. And I wanted to know,
Right.
is that how most teen moms feel, or majority of mothers feel like when they get pregnant that they have someone now that can love
The
them?
ones that lack the love, yes. The ones that felt like they didn't get the proper love that they should have gotten at home for whatever reason. I noticed that because I watch a lot of shows on teen moms, and most of them say the same thing, that they feel like they got somebody that's going to love them. When my mom passed away, I didn't feel that type of love. It took years for me to know that my grandmother genuinely loved me, even though she didn't make all the right choices when it came to protecting me from her son. But it took years to realize that this woman, genuinely loved me compared to anybody else that was in my life. The only person I thought loved me was my mom, and now my mom is gone, so I don't have nobody else that loves me. So even though my pregnancy with my daughter was not planned, I wasn't upset when I found out that I was pregnant. I was scared. Of course, I was scared because I was young, and then I didn't know I was a ward to the state too, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. But at the same token, I started thinking about the life with this child. Now somebody is going to love me unconditionally, and I think I was searching for that. When you don't have when you lack the love that you need in your life, you look for love in all the wrong places. Even in boyfriend and girlfriend relationships, we tend to fall for the wrong people because we didn't get the right type of love was shown to us. It really does take a two-parent household to genuinely show love to the daughters and the sons, so that when they get out there in the real world, they can find somebody to love them the way they was loved at home. Girls, they don't recognize real love if they don't have the father figure in their life to show them that real genuine love. And so we tend to fall for the first person to come to us and tell us that they love us, and really they don't. They just telling us whatever we want to hear, but it's not really genuine love, because and we don't know that because we have never had that genuine love. But if you had that father figure in your life that showed you, whether it was stepdad or dad-in-law or whatever, that showed you that genuine love, and you knew what that genuine love felt like, then you'll know how to choose the right person in your life. And so because of that, I I was just like, I was okay with it. I was okay with the fact that I was a teen. It was a little embarrassment in my time because back then, girls my age wasn't getting pregnant like that at that age. But at the same token, I still was looking forward to having somebody that was going to genuinely love me back.
Yeah. I wanted to say your drive to continue your education was amazing. How you went to the school, I believe the high school, and talked to the principal after the counselor tried to talk to them and somebody else talked to them. You said, I'm going to sit on these steps. I'm going to talk to the principal myself, and they
Yep.
let you back in. It worked,
Yep.
and
It
even
worked.
when you was in college, and your daughter got into a really, really bad car accident, you came back, took a break off, and then went back to taking online classes. That it shows really determination, like a lot of determination. So I'm just, so proud of you that you did do that, no matter
You know
all
what?
that you've been through.
I thank Aunt Kathy for that, because she the main one that kept telling me I wasn't gonna be nothing. You ain't gonna be nothing. You ain't this. You ain't that.
To prove
I
her
thank
wrong.
her. I thank her for that, because she wasn't the only one, but she was the main one. You know what I'm saying? And I had to keep telling myself I have to prove these people wrong. I have to prove these people wrong because everybody thought the worst of me. Everybody thought I was gonna be like my mama. They called me all type of names. They always, bad talked about my mama, called her a whore and all these different names. I had to prove everybody wrong.
Well, that's good. Good for you. Um, did you ever tell Cooper, which was Anita's dad, um, as we thought, that he wasn't your daughter's biological father? Did you ever tell him that? No. Why? You didn't want to hurt his feelings, or it would
No,
just
my past with Cooper, it's complicated. He's never been the type of person that you can actually have a genuine conversation with him and he'll take you serious. He's very manipulative. He likes to take things and twist it around. Um, and he's a big liar. Oh my God, Lord Jesus. At one time, I thought it was very important for me to tell him after I learned of the discovery. But then I thought about it. I said, now, with everything else you have come back and told him in the past, what did he do with that information? He took that information, twisted and turned it and turned it around and made it out to be something totally different. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna let him hear it through the grapevine. I said, I know somebody's gonna come back and tell him. I said, but it ain't gonna be me. I said, I want everybody to read my book before I tell him so they'll get to hear my side to the story because I knew that if I would have told him, he would have went and spreaded it before anybody had a chance to read about it in the book, and he would have had a whole narrative about that. He probably would have said, "Oh, she knew this all along, and this, that." I know him, and everybody else that know him too. And so a lot of people told me, "You did right. You did right, letting people read about it for themselves first before going back and saying, because we know how he is." And so I said, "No." I said I'll let him hear about it, and my phone is always open if he want to call me and talk about it.
and he haven't called it yet.
Nope.
Wow.
He be at my best friend house all the time, and
Wow.
her and I talk a lot. And I be waiting on her to tell me that he bring it up. I said, "Have you brought it up yet?" She said, "Nope." She said, "He ain't said nothing yet." And she said, "I'm waiting." She said, "Everybody waiting. He ain't brought it up."
Wow. Um,
Nope.
you ran away as a child. Remember the time when you ran away because you were scared and had fear, and your mom your aunts was outside, they were all looking for you. I wanted to know, did you think that had any comparison as to why your daughter would kept running away? Like maybe some kind of
I think
comparison?
every child. I think every child, because of what we see on television and what we hear from other kids, every child wants to know what it feels like to run away. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that one thing that I did, because I only did it that one time, and it was a lesson learned just that one time. Because she did it over and over and over. I think every child once in their life wants to know what it feel like to run away from home, especially when they get mad at the parents for not being able to get what they want or afraid to confront the parent about something they did wrong, and they don't want the discipline that's coming behind it. So they want to know, if I run away, would this make them be different to them? Some kids find out the hard way, no, mama ain't changing for nothing. You can run away all day long. Rules is going to be rules, you know? So, like I said, all it took was for me one time to do it, and that was like, no, I never did it again. Plus, I realized that you don't have a plan. Where I'm go? I ended up right back. And that's what most kids do. They end up right back. But nowadays it's different. These days, kids hide each other in a house, and parents don't even know that they got a whole nother child sleeping in the bed in the room, or sleeping downstairs in the basement, or sleeping under the cupboard. It's totally different these days. These days, kids know how to survive out there on the streets. Back in my time, we didn't know how to survive on the streets, so we didn't know no other way to do it but to come right back home. But it's a totally different ball game today. So yeah.
When she ran away, did you ever ask her where she go? Like any time? Like, girl, where you be
Well,
going?
I have asked her. She will never tell me. Sometimes the police have found her, and they'll tell me where they found her at. One time it was a really harsh reality. One time she ran off, and I found out she ran into the hands of a pimp, which that was really hard to hear. And yeah, she got pimped out in the world. It was a short period of time. I don't know how she got away, but she eventually got away and came home. And I remember that was the one time that hurted me the most. And I cried. I cried for days. And I actually thought that that really scared her to a point where she'll never ever do it again. But she continued to do it. I don't know if she ever ran into that life of being trafficked again. If she did, she didn't tell me. But she still always found ways to survive. So yeah, I didn't always know where she was at.
Yeah. But she was also diagnosed with bipolar syndrome and I believe ADHD too. So that may
Yeah,
be a
she was
reason too.
diagnosed with a lot of different mental health conditions. There were times where they thought she was a threat to herself, so she was hospitalized a few
Mhm.
times. She was medicated a lot. That was the issue with the medication. It was never consistent because she would always run away from home. If she's at home, I'm making sure she's taking the medication. If she run away from home, she's not on the medication. So
Yeah.
it was really hard to decipher whether the medication would help her or not.
Yeah. Even when she ran away, they even looked at you as a suspect in your daughter's disappearance. I remember you telling us about that.
Oh yeah, the one time she stayed gone for a while. Now that was the time that her and my she took my youngest daughter with her, and they was gone for like a whole week, I think it was. I don't remember. That was the long 3 days. It was 3 days. I don't know. But it was the longest she ever was gone. And because she had my daughter, my youngest daughter with her, oh my God, I almost lost my mind. And so sometimes I think it was retaliatory of the law because of the fact that I went to the chief of police at the time because I felt like they wasn't doing anything. She was a habitual runaway, and they got to a point where they was not looking for her no more. Like, okay, she's a habitual runaway, but usually if she left overnight, she would usually end up at like her dad house. Sometimes she'd run away over to his house and he wouldn't tell me she was there, or she'd end up at a friend house, but she was never gone more than a night. And this was 3 nights, and she had my little daughter with her, and that scared me. And so I said anything could have happened. And I said, I understand she's a habitual runaway, but she has a smaller child with her that's not a habitual runaway. Like, does that say much? They still was not looking for her. So I went to the chief of police, and the chief of police made them drop everything and look for her. And at that point, they started, I don't know. They I guess they started looking into me as maybe I may have done something to her for her to be gone this long or whatever. And they started doing things, questioning people behind my back, which I didn't know. They made me think that they was just trying to find out maybe if one of the other family members may have her and just not saying anything. But all along, their motive was to find out about me as a parent, you know. And when they did that, to my surprise, a lot of my so-called family members had a lot of negative stuff to say about me, which really heightened the officers thinking that I may have done something to my own kids. So yeah, that was a time that really hurt me as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um, I wanted to talk about the three youngest kids. You stated they were birthed through IVF. Um, and those are the youngest twins. You stated Pebbles, KK, and is the other one KK too?
Kaya.
Kaya? Okay, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Um, which is different from your other three, so do
Yeah.
they feel some kind of way different, that they don't kind of like have a father that's there, like how Anita does, or you know what I mean? Like, do they feel some kind
Not
of way
yet,
different?
not yet. They don't. The oldest one of the three, she do keep asking me when I'm gonna get married because she want a daddy. She's a very smart 7-year old. So I have been talking to her since she was 5 years old, trying to get her to understand what IVF is, what single mom by choice means, and how she was conceived, so that she won't ask, about a daddy, because I don't know how to respond to her. So, but she does understand why she does not have a father. And I bought her books. She has books on. They do have books on Amazon for women who chooses to go that route. If you chooses to become a single mom by choice and you want to conceive using IVF, they do have books for little kids books that teaches the kids about using donations, sperm donation, even egg donations, or single parent by choice. And they some really good books. So we was reading those books when she was very young, and now she's big enough to read, and she know how to read now, so she's big enough to read the books by herself. So she's getting to understand it. The 4-year-olds, they don't, and I haven't started with them yet. So but she does know about her donor. We talk about her donor. Now, what she don't know is the concept of, I don't have a way of contacting him, because sometimes she'll be like, can you call my donor? And I said, I don't have a way of contacting your donor. So I do talk to her about her donor. I do tell her that her donor is a doctor. Um, I do, on my ancestry tree, I do have her donor information on there. So if anything happens to me before she get to that age of finding out about who he is, she would know about, because they give you a small like bio of the donor when you get these sperm donations from the sperm bank. They give you like a small bio of them and any siblings or parents, and different things that she needs to know about them, they blood types and all that kind of stuff. So that is on there, so that if she ever needed that information, it'll be easy accessible to her. But yeah, I am totally different with them. I'm doing everything the way I should have did with the adult children. Like, I don't overspend for them. I don't buy them the latest technologies and the high fashion. I let them understand that some things have to be earned. I show them what ways they can earn things. They're so much more respectful to me. Like, oh my God, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, if I would have did this with the oldest kids, would they would have been this respectful? Like, they are always telling me, Mommy, I love you. They thank me for every little thing that I do. That's why I said it's a big difference now, because I don't do as much. So even the small things that I do for them, they thank me for. They be like, thank you for making this food for me, Mommy. Thank you for combing my hair for me, Mommy. Thank you for buying this dress for me, Mommy. I've never experienced that type of gratitude from any of my kids. So they are so different. They know they have adult siblings, and they see three of them the most. The oldest child, she lived like 6 hours away, so they don't see her as much, but they do talk to her over the phone. She wasn't as acceptable of me having more kids in the beginning, but now that they hear, she's just crazy about them now. So yeah, it is a blessing. I call them my second chance to parenthood, because God blessed me to be
Yeah.
able to have them at the age of 46 and 49. And I've given that opportunity to be a mom again, and to do it the right way this time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. But they'll have a different experience of you,
Yep.
like how we stated that with the grandfather, that people have a different experience with him. Anita
Yeah,
and your oldest three will have a different experience than
they
the
do.
youngest three. So
And the oldest ones, they show their jealousy every now and then. But at the same token, they always say, "I see why." And my oldest twin of the two oldest twin, he's like, "Well, I'm glad they had never experienced some of the things that we had to go through." He did tell me that. He's like, "I'm glad they had never experienced some of the things that we had to go through." And I told him, I said, I just want to do things different. I said, I don't want y'all to be like, well, dang. I said, I don't want y'all talking to them and like, y'all getting away with a lot. Mama never let us get away with that and this, that, and the other. I said, don't say that to them, please. I said, I'm doing things different. I told y'all that before I got pregnant. And then I came to them before I even went through the process. I said, what do y'all think about mommy having another child? I wanted their blessing, and they was all on board except for the oldest child.
Yeah. At some point, you decided to find out who your real dad was. You went on a search, and when I say you searched, you deep dive searched. Okay,
I
it like
did.
never stopped. I think you're still looking, trying to
I
find
did.
pieces. But you went to ancestry.com and connected the dots. It took a while, but you made a whole project out of it. To
I
find
did.
out.
It took a whole year. It was a process. It took a whole year when I started noticing the names. I joined some ancestry groups on Facebook, and they have what they call search angels. I didn't go to the search angels, but I just listened to what they was typing in the groups of how they do their search. All of them kept saying you have to start with the trees. You have to connect the dots with the trees. And I said, let me try to do this on my own first, because my degree is in research. So let me do this on my own first. And so that's what I did. I started going to every tree to see all the common ancestors, and it kept coming back to these two common ancestors, which was Eliza and what was the father name? Bill, William, Liza and William. And for a long time, I thought these was my great 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 grandparents. Like I thought they was two generations out. When I went and I looked them up and I found who they was and I saw when they was born and when they passed, I'm like, that these got to be great great grandparents and stuff like that. They was far out. And so once I connected with them, and I figured out all the people that's under them had that same last name. That's when I started reaching out to everybody that I knew that knew my mom good to find out if they recognized the last name. Nobody recognized the last name. I don't know why I didn't go to Aunt Kathy first. I really don't. Her and my mama was thick as thieves. I have no clue why I didn't go to her first. My search would have probably been a lot shorter had I went to her first. But she was actually the last one that I went to, and she did recognize the last name. And when she recognized the last name, it took her a little bit, but she figured out the first name, and we found him on one of the trees. But unfortunately, he was already passed on, and so, but we knew without a shadow of doubt, especially when I finally got a picture of him and I saw how he looked. I knew without a doubt that this had to be my father. I saw everybody can see the resemblance, like right there. But yeah, I had, and it took a while to figure it out who he was, but then it took another minute to get a picture of him. So the way I got the picture of him, because he was deceased, nobody had a picture of him on the tree. And so I had let me see, what did I do? I think I searched on Google. I searched his name on Google. I mean, I was doing a whole lot of searching. This is how I found out he was in the military. I found out where he lived at, which was on the southeast side of Chicago. Everything was just connected like perfectly because everybody that had that last name, none of them I could connect to Chicago. So he was the first one that I connected to Chicago. So everything was connected perfectly. And so I was wondering if maybe he still had family members that lived over there. And so something told me, because I remember my mama's death certificate, that my uncle signed off on my mama's death certificate. And I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can send for his death certificate, because anybody can send for people death certificate these days. and see if I can find out who signed his death certificate. I said, if I can find out who signed his death certificate, maybe I can get a picture of him. And so when the death certificate came, the name on the death certificate turned out to be his nephew. And I called the same two cousins who had been helping me figure out who my father was. They looked on the family tree and they found out he passed away. I said, oh, dang. But he left behind a wife and kids. So we found the wife and kids on Facebook. I sent the message to the wife and the kids, but the wife never responded. One of his daughters did respond, and I had talked to her through Messenger, and I told her I don't want to sound like this deranged woman. I said, but I've been searching for my father, and I found out that his name was this person. And I said, I'm just trying to find a picture of him. And so she exchanged phone numbers. We talked. And after we talked more and she started listening that I was real sincere, then I sent her a picture of me. So when she got the picture, she looked at the picture like, yeah, she can be his child. That's when she sent the picture back to me. And when she sent that picture to me, any thought that I may have had of him went straight out the door. All I did was cry because I was
Yeah.
looking at my biological father for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fact. Did you want to get some water? Did you want to get some water?
Yeah, let me go grab my water.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
We're almost to the close. A few more minutes and then we'll be out. Shakina, Yolanda, do y'all have any other questions before we close shortly?
No, man, there's I've just been listening and just absorbing.
Yeah. Did you get the book?
Yeah, I didn't get the chance to completely finish it, but
But you
it
got it
sounds
though.
like yeah.
Okay, good,
I
good,
think
good. Long as you got it.
it was slightly triggering, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
had to put
Yeah,
it
I had to
down
put it
for a
All
down.
right,
bit.
I'm back.
Yeah, yeah. Long as you got it. That's all. That's all. I know you're gonna finish. Um, I like the fact you didn't just use one website. You went to Ancestry, you went to GED Match. You found all these other websites to connect the dots. Like you were so adamant, like you was like, I need to know,
Yeah,
and you, like you said, went to Facebook. I want to call out the names on Facebook in case people wanted to know. I know one of the names of the Facebook group was Unknown Fathers DNA,
yeah,
um, DNA detectives in parentheses. I didn't even know, these even existed out here. But yeah, it was called Unknown Fathers DNA, DNA detectives. There's an NPE group, I believe, on Facebook
yeah,
and on YouTube. So I want to let the people know about that. Um, am I leaving any other group out? Oh, there's NPE, not parent expected. That's what it means. NPE, not parent expected. There's another group you joined on Facebook called DNA Identity Surprises and This NPE Life and Togetherness Heals, NPE only. So there were a
yeah.
lot of different things that you have had access to also help you in your journey of finding your real parents. Now,
And
what?
not only that, but to also to help with the emotions that you go through when you learn of this. When you find out your identity, you're going through a whole lot of emotions. Like it was bittersweet to learn that the man that I thought was my father, who had been abusing me my entire childhood life, was not my real father. But at the same token, I bonded with his family. This was my family. And to learn that his mother, the one that I always felt genuinely loved me, was not my biological grandmother, that did something to me. So you're going through a whole whirlwind of emotions, and these are really good support groups. They are really good support groups because they also help you understand that you're not alone in this. You're not the only one who have learned at a late age that one or both of your parents is not your biological parents. Some adults right now in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s don't even know they have been adopted because people are not they wasn't counting on ancestry or 23andMe or any of these other DNA people to tell them the truth. Back in the days where there was a lot of infidelity in relationship, they wasn't counting that this type of stuff was going to reveal the truth. So it's constantly, these groups are constantly growing by the day. Like thousands are taking these DNA tests just for fun, or taking it because somebody gifted it to them, or taking it because they want to build a tree, or the whole family decide. Like when I took it for my kids, I wasn't expecting no DNA discovery. I was not expecting to find out that the man that I thought was my child's father was not her dad. I wasn't expecting that. Not by no means at all. I thought I knew who her father was. you know, and so there are people out there that's like me who really genuinely did not know, and there's other ones out there that knew that it was a possibility, but just kept it swept under the rug, not knowing that ancestry DNA was going to reveal the truth.
Or there's
Behind,
denial.
huh?
I said, or in
Right, the
denial,
truth or
like
the
how you
denial.
said
Exactly.
their
You know what I'm
children, they were
saying?
married or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh no, that's not my child," knowing that's their child because they don't want to be, how can I say, bring any trouble to their household. So they'll just,
Right.
so back then, before they took the test, because they used to say, "Oh, that's not my child, that's somebody else's child," and they would accept that person as being honest, even though the person just sat there and denied the child that they know is clearly theirs.
Exactly. And even today, a lot of them are suffering. They in their 50s, 60s, 40s. They're suffering because they're finding out the truth, and then comes the rejection. They're reaching out to the family. They're reaching out to the half siblings, or they're reaching out to the father. And again, like you said, these dads stepped out on their relationship, and they're probably still with the wives or still with the family, and they don't want to break that up, and so they're rejecting it still. They don't care what ancestry said. My daughter took the DNA results to my uncle and said, this is what my mom found out. Oh, that ain't real. Ancestry ain't real. That stuff ain't real. He's totally denying it. Telling her that it's not real. Well, how do you explain all your family coming up on her DNA? How do you explain your granddaughter coming up as her niece on the DNA, but you're saying the stuff is not real? Like, the denial is real. And so people are suffering. My daughter is suffering. It took her a while to for this to sink in for her, but now the rejection is starting to bother her because she's not upset that the person she thought was her father is not her father. She cared less because she felt like he was never a father figure in her life anyway. But she is upset that the person that she grew to love as her uncle is rejecting her as her dad because he don't believe the ancestral results. So she's suffering from that. So it is a thing. It's really hard. And these groups help save my life. Really, they do. And I'm still a part of. I'm still helping others who's found every day somebody is joining that group because they're finding out. Some of them found out a year ago, 2 years ago, and they're just now opening themselves up to talk about it. It's not nothing to talk about right away, especially if you was a daddy's girl. Let's say you was a daddy's girl and your daddy treated you like the princess, and now daddy is gone, and you found out that that wasn't even daddy all along. Or some of them got a daddy that's still here, and they don't know how to tell their daddy that, daddy, you're not even my real daddy. It's hard. It
Yeah,
really is.
I know Carrie Washington wrote a book and she mentioned about her just finding out in her adult years. I do, but
Yeah.
I haven't read all of it, but I did go to her book talk, and she mentioned that she just found out. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
she found out
yeah.
that they used a
Hmm.
egg donor. I mean, a
Hmm.
sperm donor. So he wasn't her real biological father. A lot of that happened. That's why I started talking to my girls early, because I said I don't want them getting older and they find out, that they got other half siblings out there and mom never told me. You got to talk about this stuff to your kids, but nobody didn't think that there was a DNA thing platform that was going to start revealing all of these secrets, because that's
But
what they
but
all
in
was.
but in your case, your mom, she kind of thought that that was your dad, you know? I mean, she probably
I'm
don't even know
assuming.
she got pregnant by the other guy,
I'm
just because you have
assuming.
sex.
I really I don't know,
Yeah.
because I never got a chance to talk to her. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that she must have thought he was my father to put me off on him. That's just an assumption. Honestly, nobody else in the family thought. I'm not talking about his family, but like when I talked to her friend, when I talked to my uncles, even when I was trying to tell them that I'm trying to find out who my real father. Oh, you ain't got to look no more. That's your real father. They actually believe that was the real father. Like, she never talked about nobody else besides him. So nobody else
Yeah.
thought it was nobody else.
Yeah. Now I
So
don't know where they got that. Remember when the granddad and the father, supposedly father, was saying that he remember when you asked him, "You think you my real dad?" I don't know where he may have gotten that. Where I don't really know if you're really my daughter. Remember, but you never really
right.
thought any more of it.
He said it was rumors. That's what he
Oh,
said.
okay,
Oh,
okay,
he said it was rumors that when my mom was pregnant, he said there was rumors saying that a couple of his cousins could have been the father. He was listed as a father, and somebody else that lived on the block as a father. He was basically saying that my mom would get around.
right, right, right.
In
Okay.
I guess in a nice way. He didn't say
Mm,
it, but he did say that he said, I'm not gonna lie, when your mama was pregnant with you, it was a lot of names thrown out there. And he
hmm.
said that, but when I was born and he laid eyes on me and he saw how pretty I was, he was like, well, I'll be the daddy.
Hmm.
So he
Yeah,
accepted
he
me.
stepped up. He stepped up.
Right,
So she like, okay, that's your daughter. You know,
right.
I mean, hey, but yeah. So I wanted you to tell the people what made you even start at the search. Where did the search begin?
What
To start
search?
when you said, "I don't think that he's my father." Because remember, all this time he was young, you thought Rodwell was.
Because like I said, over the years, I always felt like I wasn't a part of the family, and it always just
Hmm.
went through one ear and out the other because I was afraid of losing the only family that I know. But as I got older, I started realizing, and then I had my own family, my own kids and stuff like that. I started realizing I'm forcing myself to be a part of something that may not be meant for me to be a part of. And that's when I started realizing that maybe I need to start finding out the truth. And at that time, I used to watch the Maury show all the time. And when I found out about the one episode where the mother was trying to find out if her late son had fathered a child, that's when Maury had did a grandparents test, which I didn't even know existed. And so I'm started looking at my grandmother like, okay, let me try to find a way to get her on this show because I wanted to find out, but I knew that my aunties, being as overprotective of her as they were, they was not going to let that happen. They was not going to allow her to go on no talk show. And so I'm thinking about, okay, how I could find another way to do it. Because I found out that you can buy these testers in stores like the drug stores, like Walgreens. So those testers was extremely expensive back then. They was like $500 and some dollars and stuff like that. So I was like, no, I didn't never had the money for it. And so I just left it alone. I just left it alone and just said, it is what it is. I guess I never this is before Ancestry started doing DNA. So I just left it alone and just decided, it is what it is. I guess I never know until my grandmother passed away. She was that was my heartbeat right there. And my heart just stopped when she passed away. And the last draw was when I went to her funeral and they played the video of all of her family and her life throughout the years and never included me or my kids. That hurted me so bad. Like, I was at that funeral just staring at that video. I must have watched that video 1,000 times just trying to make sure I didn't overlook nothing. And I noticed that it just kept replaying. It kept replaying. Not one picture of me or my kids. And I got a million pictures of me and my grandmother. And it hurted me. Like, I knew at that moment that they did not consider me a part of this family. And so after my grandmother had passed away, something triggered me on Facebook. I don't know what it was. And that was the first time I openly talked about my abuse by my father. I never had openly talked about that to nobody. I may have privately talked about it to like somebody really close that I trust, but I never really talked about it a lot. And I openly talked about it and I put it on Facebook. I just mentioned my father, didn't mention no names or anything like that. I didn't tell a whole story, but I just told like a synopsis of, what happened to me as a child. And then later on that day, I started getting messages from people asking me, who is this person leaving this message under, saying all this bad stuff. I mean, people were just telling me about this one particular post that was up under there. And I was like, well, I don't know what it was say. And I went and they was like, you ain't read it yet? I was like, no. And they was like, well, go read it. And I went and read it. It was from one of my aunties. And she really went off on me. Like she was really upset that I let the family secret out. Talked about her brother on, and she was like, you're not the only one that he molested. He molested all of us and this, that, and the other. I mean, she just really went off because I was telling my truth. And I was like, that's it. That was the last draw. That was the last draw. And I had by this time Ancestry was doing the tests then. And I just decided I'm gonna take this test. I need to know. And because I kept telling myself that my grandmother was the glue that kept me bonded with this family. And once the Lord called her home, that glue was gonna become unattached. And that's exactly what happened. It was still hard to walk away from the family even after she passed away. It was even still hard to walk away even after I found out the truth that they wasn't, my blood family, because again, I bonded with them. Blood don't make you family. But after the DNA discovery of my daughter, it was over. They made it so much more easy because the rumors started going around in the family, and of course I was being blamed for everything. And that was it. That made it easy. I was like, this was the trigger I needed.
Well, I'm sure you look back now as that's one of the best things you could ever done.
Best decisions I could have made. It's been over a year and have not spoke to one person on that side of the family. I'm actually
Okay.
trying to get to know my real blood family. They have embraced me.
Yeah.
They have been trying ever since I found out who they was. They have been trying to get me and my kids to a family reunion for the last couple of years. So finally we going this year. We done sent in our
Yeah,
money.
I was about to say you better go to that family reunion this year.
I done sit there my money. They been calling and asking, are you coming to the reunion? I come. We can't wait to meet you. We can't wait to meet you. They are really, really so excited to meet me for the first time. And I'm excited to meet them for the first time. I've never met them. They didn't turn their back on me when they saw that I was a part of the family through ancestry DNA. They didn't do none of that. They felt like, okay, we believe her. She is our family, and they've embraced me as a part of their family. So I can't wait to meet them.
Yes, that's amazing. That is a beautiful ending of the story. They didn't have no questions, no doubts. It was like, hey, they saw that picture, boom, start sending you information, pictures, and everything, and they just open their arms to you. That is amazing. That is so
Mhm.
beautiful. I have one last question, and we're done. Unless Yolanda have something to say, but I wanted to know your uncles told you that your mom was a prostitute and a pimp at some point. And you stated that you couldn't help but wonder if your mother was pimping you as a child.
Yeah, because that's when I started putting two and two together. At the time, I was in my depression mode because I had just found out about the discovery of my daughter's DNA. And so when I found out about the discovery of my daughter's DNA, and I learned that one of my childhood abusers fathered my child, like my whole past trauma came back before me. Like I thought about everything as if it just happened yesterday. And I was like really surprised because I never thought about any of this abuse over the years. Like all of a sudden it just came out of nowhere, and it was like my life flashing before me. And then just a year or so before that, my uncles had just told me about my mom being a pimp. And so when I was thinking about my life as a child being abused by all these different men, I started thinking about the one time my mom used to randomly leave me with these different men that I had never met before. I didn't know who they was, and the minute she walked up out the door, they immediately started touching me. I started thinking like, could she have been pimping me? I mean, it was one thing to hear from one uncle, and that was the uncle, of course, who also molested me. But when it came from my other uncle, my favorite uncle, I knew it was some truth behind that, that my mama actually was a pimp. But was she that surreal that she would pimp her own child? And when I think about those days, because like I said, they came back as if it happened yesterday. And when I was thinking about it, I said, you know what? As soon as she walked out that door, they immediately started. Like they didn't give her a chance to see if she was going to turn around or anything. Like I was there for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
And
what I'm
then,
saying?
yeah, yeah. And I remember you stated that her financial support system had passed away, remember?
Right.
So maybe there was some kind of money exchange because she didn't have
Yeah.
him anymore. So she needed a way to make money. And anytime you know that you're a prostitute or a pimp, you making money, you know? So
Exactly.
that's one of the topics and subjects that we don't really even talk about. Like that's really like a no. Like that's unbelievable, but it does happen, you
It
know.
happens.
So
It
yeah.
happens. I watch those unfiltered stories, and a lot of the stories on there, the people talk about the parents pimping them as kids, selling them off, whether it's the dad or the mom or both. And it
Yeah.
happens a lot. It happens more often than you think that they can stoop that low, especially if they're using drugs. Now, at that time, I didn't know if my mom was using drugs, but
Mhm.
I often wonder, was she using drugs, and was it that bad that she had to sell her daughter? I just really can't understand why she kept my brother up under her so much and just always left me behind. I'm still stuck on why she left me with my uncle. Like,
Yeah.
why not leave him? Why you left
Right.
me instead of not him?
Yeah.
What
And not even
I
only the Detroit situation when she left you in a house, remember? With
Right,
nothing but
that's what I'm talking about. My
yeah,
uncle.
yeah,
When she
yeah,
left me out in Detroit with him, why
yeah,
didn't you leave my brother out there?
yeah,
If
yeah,
you only could afford to take one child back, how did you manage to choose the youngest child, the boy, than your daughter? I can't wrap my mind around that. So I don't it's hard for me not to think that she did not pimp me. It's hard to not think that because he was the main one. I mean, he bragged about it. He bragged about how my mama, oh, your mama was something that, oh, she used to bring me some of the prettiest girls. He bragged about the women my mama brought him, you know. So I have a hard time not believing that my mama did not leave me there purposely. That
yeah,
maybe he was her ticket to get back to Chicago by leaving me behind. I don't know. And so the counselor tried to find ways to not make me believe that. And I told him, it's going to take a lot for you to explain why these men immediately started. I mean, she had this man that she claimed was my father that didn't have no problems keeping me. She had her best friend, Aunt Kathy, that didn't have no problems keeping me. So if she needed somebody to keep me, she didn't have an issue. So you explained to me, why did she pick a random man that I had never met a day in my life to leave me with, to go do whatever it was she needed to do, and then come back and get me? I said, make it make sense. Otherwise,
They
you're
may have
not gonna.
given her money in exchange of leaving you.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to help me not go down that route. But I'm sorry. I can't. I can't think of nothing else.
Mhm.
I can't think of nothing else. I could see if she didn't have a support system to help her with the kids. Yeah. Even like I
So,
said,
did you
even with
connect
leaving.
with her maternal side, or just the paternal side?
Never, because she never
I'm talking about
introduced.
when you
I
did
mean,
ancestry DNA.
oh, I'm trying slowly.
Okay.
I'm slowly. I've gotten invited to their family reunion a couple of times too. I haven't went. I told my uncle I was gonna go this time. I said I'm gonna go this time,
Okay.
but I I do she only had two. My grandmother only had three brothers. I mean three kids, and that's my mom and two brothers. One of her
Mhm.
brothers passed away. The other brother, the one that molested me, he's still living. Now
Mhm.
the one that passed away, his wife is still living. And so
Mhm.
her and I is real close. So we talk a lot, and she be trying to introduce me to, because she know more about that side of the family than I do, because she was
Right.
married to my uncle.
Right.
But no, like I didn't even know her grandmother. I didn't even know she had a grandmother that was living. I didn't know anything about her grandmother until after she passed away. And then
Right.
this lady started writing me and sending me pictures, and I never wrote her back because I never heard of her. I didn't even know who
Mhm.
she was. Like my mom didn't even tell me she died after my mother.
Oh wow.
Like I had a whole great grandmother out there that I could have got a chance to meet and never had the chance. I don't know. That's why I say sometimes I think something happened with my mom, that she was disconnected from her family.
Right. I mean, they could have been just as awful, like how you said your grandfather was awful to you. They could have been just as awful to her, and she was like,
Right. That's what I'm
"I don't
saying.
want
It
my
was
kids
something.
involved with none of that. Nothing not go
Right.
through."
It was something
You
had to
know.
happen. She was very disconnected from them. Very
Mhm.
disconnected. Like I didn't even know about my one uncle until after she died. I knew about the one who molested me because she talked about him all the time. But
Mhm.
her other brother, she never really talked about him. I just knew he stayed in Ohio. So she was very disconnected from her family. So
Mhm.
maybe she had a reason. I don't
Right.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is something definitely to think about. And that's gonna
It's
be,
tough.
yeah, a question on your mind because you never will get answers, because she's no longer with us. But I will say that I am so happy that you decided to write this book and to tell your story. Like I said, I have been looking for a book related to child abuse, and I tell everybody now that this is the book.
Mhm.
This is the book. Even to share with whomever, your family, sit down and have a conversation, discuss it, whatever. But when I tell you discussed everything in this book, you have discussed everything in this book. So I'm like I said, I'm very glad that you came on with us. You took time out your schedule to discuss this book with us, and we really appreciate it. And if you ever write another book, definitely come back on with us. We would definitely love to have you. And I know you have so many resources. So, if you ever want to, share with us or share with me anything that you may come across, or another book, or anything, maybe, far as documentaries, YouTube videos, or anything that may help us share the information with other people, please definitely
Yeah,
do that.
unfiltered stories is definitely by far the best. Unfiltered
Mhm.
stories, they are
That's on YouTube.
yeah, they are on YouTube, and it's called Unfiltered Stories. You will find so many stories of childhood trauma and abuse.
Hmm.
They have other stories as well, but you'll find a lot about the childhood trauma and abuse. That actually helps me in my healing, because my kids used to always come in here and be like, "Mom, why you always watching this?" I said, "Believe it or not, this helps me with my healing, because it
Hmm.
always helps to know that this not only happened to you, that this happened to other people." You know what I'm saying? It also helps you to find your voice, and it actually helps to heal. Writing my story helped me to heal, because even though it was hard, I know it's a hard read, because it was hard for me to write it, because I had to relive every moment Every moment in that book, I had to relive. I never talked about my mama's murder since she died, because that always been something that was hard for me to talk about. So I had to relive that moment. But that lets you know when there's truth to these stories, is because the story never changes. And it's a trauma that sticks with you forever. I can remember those type of traumas as if it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for that, I think if it wasn't for, this was a story that's been waiting and been told for years, but I think if it wasn't for the DNA discovery about my daughter's dad, I probably wouldn't have never found, my voice and told that story. But that is what pushed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is definitely what pushed it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
but
appreciate
I'm
you.
working on my second book. And this one is more about my journey to becoming a single mom by choice.
Okay.
So that's my second book. Is more to becoming a single mom by choice. Because a lot of women out there, they reach out to me and they wanted to know how I did it and how much it cost and what you had to go through and all the process.
Yeah. 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 That definitely would be good. Like I say, once you finish it and have it published, please let me know. And
Okay,
we'll
I sure
definitely have you
will.
back on. One thing about our book club is I like to discuss topics that are not so easy to talk about, that
Right,
people are not comfortable with talking about, because
right.
this stuff is going on. Whether we want
Yeah,
to
that's
act
reality.
like it's not,
Yeah.
be oblivious, like, no, I've never heard of it. We're not talking about, no, we talking about it over here.
Okay,
So
exactly,
yeah, we live in a
exactly,
real world. This is a real world,
exactly,
and real issues and real things are going on.
That's correct.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So again, like I said, thank you so much. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
no
And
problem. Thank you for
yeah,
having me on. I
oh,
thank you
you're
so much.
welcome.
Thank you to all of you.
Yes,
Thanks.
definitely. All right. Well, have a good weekend and enjoy your rest of your week. And until next time.
All right, hon. Thank you.
All
All right.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.